Bobby Unser became kart's first pole sitter, driving a new design called Ground Effects. Gordon Johncock became kart's first winner. In July of that year, here at Michigan, Johncock won again in a twin race. Danny Ongaias was, as always, fast, but suffered bad luck and sent Johnny Rutherford spinning with him. Bobby Unser added another win to his record. In 1980, Johnny Rutherford picked up the seat in the Chaparral and started picking up victories. Lone Star JR spent most of 1980 battling with Bobby Unser. At the Michigan 200, Rutherford proved that he and the Ground Effect Chaparral were the combination to beat. At Milwaukee last year, it was Rutherford and Unser, hammer and tong. But it was Al Unser that finally got his new Longhorn racer working and moved into first place, only to have a wheel come off and end his day against the wall. In winner's circle, it was JR once again. The last race of the season was at Phoenix, and the script was the same. Bobby Unser and Johnny Rutherford as co-favorites. The Chaparral flew out in front, and then, without warning, up into the air. It was a miracle that Johnny was not seriously injured. When the race resumed, it was Tom Sneva that took home the victory, and in his hospital bed, Johnny Rutherford was crowned with his first national championship. 1981 started at Phoenix with some new faces. The likable young Mexican, Jose Legarza. He impressed the crowd and the racing fraternity. After 150 miles, though, it was Johnny Rutherford once again. At Atlanta 3 weeks ago, the cast of characters changed. Rick Mears drove 2 brilliant races to win the Atlanta Twin 125s, despite a last-lap attempt by Mario Andretti.
And that brings us up to date on the history of kart. And today, as we await the start of the 500-mile race, he has led throughout this qualifying race. In car number 64,
we got a problem. That's McDonald spinning. Buick also spun. A wheel off one of the cars. McDonald stopped on the race course.
It is in turn 4.
It is Sneva, not McDonald. The cars are almost identical. One only has a small yellow stripe. This does not. So Jerry Sneva has misfortune today. He's all right. He's climbing out of the car, but he has to be a very disappointed young man. The yellow flag is out. Yellow flag laps will not count in this race. Looking at it one more time, there is Sneva's car. Slides up high, really gets up in the air against Buick's machine. Buick's right front comes off. Sneva does another slow loop, and both of them continue on spinning. Sneva is able to get the car stopped in the middle of the turn, and Buick takes his machine on down into the pit area. So Buick up in the air, almost over the fence.
And now let's go back to just before it happened. We were isolated on car number 43, Jerry Sneva.
Here is Sneva. He's losing the back end of the car, comes completely sideways, does a complete spin. The smoke is from the tires sliding across the surface, not from fire on the car. And Jim Buick happened to be the eyewitness that got a little too close. And he came up and over the rear wheels of Sneva's machine, which is one of the most dangerous parts of IndyCar racing. You touch those wheels, and you're running a risk of getting launched all the way over to that fence. He was up in the air, the fence stopped him, and the car slides down on into the pit area.
Did a 360, and then Jim Buick is the man who just happened to be there. Wrong place at the wrong time.
As we look at it again, you could see that that right rear wheel was at a funny angle even before Buick got into it. Buick got into the air and then against that wall hard. So he certainly could have suffered some serious injury. The championship race car is so well built, though, that was an impact that probably...
The final minutes of preparation before the start of an IndyCar race. to you by Miller Brewing Company, brewers of Miller High Life beer. If you've got the time, we've got the beer. And by Sure Antiperspirant in 3 convenient forms. They'll help keep you dry all day. And by Kemper and the independent insurance agents who represent us. For all your insurance needs, ride with Kemper. And by the new Speed Stick Super Dry Antiperspirant. Goes on so dry you can get dressed right away. Speed Stick, 5 minutes. And today, the summer season comes to you live from Brooklyn, Michigan, home of the Michigan International Speedway. Today, the Michigan 500 for IndyCars. Hello, everyone. I'm Bruce Jenner, and we've got an exciting show for you here on the summer season. Today, it's the first live television broadcast ever of a IndyCar 500-mile race, and I know the drivers are ready, and everybody involved with the production is excited about bringing you this show. And today, if time and circumstances permit, we're also going to do a baseball strike update and some thoroughbred racing from England. But we've got a lot of things to do today, so let's get on the move. Right now, up to our hosts, Charlie Jones and Paul Page.
Hi, thank you, Bruce. It seems like only a week ago, Paul, that we were standing right here before we were rudely interrupted by Mother Nature. So we had to wait 6 extra days for television sports history. And that, of course, the Michigan 500, the first live flag-to-flag coverage of an IndyCar race at a distance of 500 miles.
A 500-mile race is always an exciting thing. This one especially so, because it's the inaugural event. And perhaps more exciting for the drivers and the crews is the purse is over $500,000, over $100,000 to the winner. And that is second only to the purse offered at the Indianapolis 500.
The weather here today, it is warm, muggy, a bit hazy, but the sun is out. That is different than it was last Sunday when this race was scheduled and we were inundated by the rain.
Well, the rain, of course, caused problems for the drivers and the crews. It meant an extra week here. That's an added expense. It also compressed the rest of the schedule for them, less preparation time for the next race. The rain we thought was going to end early, but then it didn't. The clouds opened up and we had rain that rained out the first day. The crews have now had a week to work on the cars. They've also had 1 day of practice. For some, that was a help. For others, a hindrance.
Yeah, you know, if we'd have started the race last weekend and just went directly into the race like we were planning on, we'd have had some problems during the race. So we went out in this hour practice session this morning. We found out some brackets were breaking it to support the tunnels on the side pods on the side of the car. And just lucky for us that we did have another practice session before the race.
Well, I'm quite sure they gained some, you know, because we was all set to go Sunday, and at least they got to feel what the track was like the day after the rain and all. So we're going to have to start kind of cold turkey. It's going to hurt us a little bit.
Well, we were ready to go racing when the gun was going to fly, but we were sort of happy to see it because we didn't have as much time on the track as some of the teams, and so it gave us an opportunity to look at some things and make a couple little variations and come back and even be a little quicker this week than we were last week.
It is also the end of a lot of preparation for championship auto race teams. They have a 2-year history. They have been working very, very hard, and NBC has been there over most of the history. So let's go back 2 years and take a look at the history of championship auto race teams.
Bobby Unser became CART's first pole sitter, driving a new design called Ground Effects. Gordon Johncock became CART's first winner. In July of that year, here at Michigan, Johncock won again in a twin race. Danny Ongaias was, as always, fast, but suffered bad luck and sent Johnny Rutherford spinning with him. Bobby Unser added another win to his record. In 1980, Johnny Rutherford picked up the seat in the Chaparral and started picking up victories. Lone Star Jr. spent most of 1980 battling with Bobby Unser. At the Michigan 200, Rutherford proved that he and the Ground Effect Chaparral were the combination to beat. At Milwaukee last year, it was Rutherford and Unser, hammer and tong. But it was Al Unser that finally got his new Longhorn racer working and moved into first place, only to have a wheel come off and end his day against the wall. In winner's circle, it was JR once again. The last race of the season was at Phoenix, and the script was the same. Bobby Unser and Johnny Rutherford as co-favorites. The Chaparral flew out in front, and then, without warning, up into the air. It was a miracle that Johnny was not seriously injured. When the race resumed, it was Tom Sneva that took home the victory, and in his hospital bed, Johnny Rutherford was crowned with his first national championship. 1981 started at Phoenix with some new faces. The likable young Mexican, Jose Legarza. He impressed the crowd and the racing fraternity. After 150 miles, though, it was Johnny Rutherford once again. At Atlanta 3 weeks ago, the cast of characters changed. Rick Mears drove 2 brilliant races to win the Atlanta Twin 125s, despite a last lap attempt by Mario Andretti.
250 laps over this 2-mile oval, and now we're going to turn it over to the president of the company that sponsors this race, Donald Melville, and racing's most famous command.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Begins to build on the grid for the start of the Michigan 500. Each of these cars roars out its challenge to one another. Over 25,000 horsepower represented by these machines. The crews raising their hands, indicating that they are now ready to go. Pancho Carter sitting so calmly in his machine. Johnny Rutherford is ready. We're ready for the start of the Michigan 500.
On the front row, Tom Sneva on the pole. Johnny Rutherford and Rick Mears will be outside of him. There's Steve Krisaloff. He is driving the machine of Mario Andretti. Krisaloff still looking for his first win as the cars start to very slowly edge out of the pits. This will be the first of 3 laps before we see the green flag. A race of 500 miles, a story could well be told in the pits. Bruce Jenner is there, as is Gary Gerald. Let's go down to Gary right now.
Charlie, I'll tell you, these crews, these drivers, for the second time in a week, now anxiously awaiting this very moment. The intensity level way up. They're looking to something that's never been experienced before. The prospect of 500 miles on the banks of Michigan International Speedway. Track temperature just minutes ago, 100 degrees. That's almost ideal. It should not be any type of a problem. But the demands of the racetrack are something else. And with that aspect of the story, let's go to our colleague in the pits, Bruce Jenner.
Gary, the reason this track is difficult for him being banked is on a conventional flat track, the cars in the turn are forced centrifugally to the outside of the turn. Now that same turn is banked. That centrifugal force now pushes the car down onto the track. In fact, yesterday I was out driving around the track. You can see places where actually the cars have been pushed down so hard onto the track that they had dug some of the pavement up from underneath. So it's going to be difficult for these cars to go 500 miles on this banked track. All right, let's go back up to Charlie.
37 cars on the starting grid. All of the top drivers are here with the exception of Andretti and Ongaias. So right now, let's set the field for the Michigan 500.
The front row qualified at better than 200 miles an hour. Tom Sneva on the pole at 201.359. A March, a new car this year. The defending national champion Johnny Rutherford is in the center of the row, car number 1, the yellow Chaparral. Some think the best starting position is the outside of the row. Rick Mears is there and eager to lead the first lap.
In the second row, we have a total of 67 wins. Inside in car number 5 in his 8th year racing Indy cars, Pancho Carter. He has not won. In the middle is Steve Krisaloff in car number 40. That is Mario Andretti's car. Krisaloff is yet to win. And outside number 14, A.J. Foyt. 67 wins, 4-time Indianapolis champion.
Row 3 averages 196 miles an hour. A happy but surprised Bill Alsop is on the inside, and his team Penske number 7. The factory March entry is in the middle of row 3. Bill Whittington is driving his first IndyCar ride on the high banks. The outside, Bobby Unser. Mechanical problems, slow disqualification, but he should move up fast at the start.
His brother Al Unser is inside on row 4, and Al has 36 wins to his credit. In the middle is the rookie, Kevin Colgan. Yet to win, but still the 5th leading money winner this year. And outside is Mike Mosley, who won at Milwaukee this year in car number 48.
On the inside of the 5th row with 3 career victories at this track, car number 20, Gordon Johncock. He should make an early move to the front. And then if he is smart, Mike Chandler in number 74 will follow Johncock through. Then Billy Engelhardt on the outside of the row should fall in behind Chandler.
Now let's take a look at the rest of the field. In row 6, Larry Cannon, Bob Lazier, and Gary Bettenhausen. We expect Gary to be up among the early leaders. The 7th row inside is Joseli Garza, the Rookie of the Year at Indianapolis this year. The second Bettenhausen Tony is there, as is the veteran Tom Bigelow.
There are 2 stock blocks in the 8th row, those of Jerry Carl and Herm Johnson. Larry Dixon has a conventional-powered Cosworth machine. We expect him to move up early. In the 9th row, Vern Schupan has a Cosworth engine. Bill Vukovich and Dick Ferguson both have Offenhauser 4-cylinder powered machines.
In row 10, the rookie is in the middle. That is Chip Meade. The veteran, Saul Walter, he is on the inside, and watch car number 21 to make an early move. Outside is Dick Simon. In row 11, the rookie is inside. That is Scott Brayton in car number 37. The veterans are Roger Rager and Cliff Hugo.
In the 12th and 13th row, we have those cars that have been added by the promoter's option. In the 12th row, Steve Chassie and Bill Tempero were the alternates. Harry McDonald got into the race as a result of his position in finishing a qualifying race, as did the lone car in the 13th row, Phil Kaliva.
In car number 7, Bill Alsop. The camera is on board, and this is what it looks like.
An incredible picture. That is just about 4 inches off the track surface. The camera down in the nose of the car. You're looking at it live. There is Bill Alsop. The camera in his car, the first time it has ever been done in an Indy-type car.
Waving to the crowds, this is the shot. He is inside in row 3. This is live from the car of Bill Alsop.
Just in front, in the center of the front row, you can see the bright yellow of Johnny Rutherford's cars. The front row perfectly aligned. Tom Sneva on the pole, Johnny Rutherford alongside. The field is looking in just perfect condition.
This track is banked all the way around. The back straight is banked at 5 degrees. That's the only straight there is. The turns are banked at 18 degrees. The front straight, although it flattens out when you look at it, is banked at 12 degrees.
The pace car has now turned off its yellow flashing lights, and that means that we are ready for a start. Currently here it is 82 degrees. The humidity up a bit at 69%. There's 30% chance of precipitation. It is cloudy and overcast. The track surface temperature is just over 100 degrees.
The front row, Tom Sneve on the pole, Johnny Rutherford, and then Rick Mears. Second row is Pancho Carter, Steve Krisloff, and A.J. Foyt. Third row, Bill Alsop, Bill Whittington, and Bobby Unser as we await the green flag. They come between turns 3 and turn 4. And we look for the second lap to be over 200 miles an hour today.
The pace car is off the race course. The pole sitter, Tom Sneva, brings them down. He's waiting for the green flag. The starter gives the green flag, and the first Michigan 500 for IndyCars is underway as Tom Sneva moves out in the front.
Rutherford goes behind him and stays high through the first turn, and dropping back is Rick Mears. It is Sneva and Rutherford in the early going. As they go through turn 2, Rutherford tucks right in behind Tom Sneva.
Tom Sneva leads down the backstretch. It's Johnny Rutherford right behind him, and Steve Krisloff has moved up to do battle with Rick Mears in first place. But here is 1 and 2. Tom Sneva and Johnny Rutherford through the first turn, the second turn, now through the third, heading through the fourth, and Sneva is showing a definite advantage here in the early going as Tom Sneva comes around to lead the first of 250 laps. It's Johnny Rutherford in second place, Steve Krisloff in third, Rick Mears is in fourth.
Pancho Carter follows him, A.J. Foyt, Bill Alsop in that order.
Ever so smoothly now as Tom Sneva begins to pull out just a bit more from second place Johnny Rutherford. We've got trouble in turn number 2, a car sliding. Got up high and then back on the race course. So in the first lap, we have a yellow flag at the conclusion of lap number 1. The yellow flag is out. Tom Sneva will slow. Apparently, Larry Cannon got sideways in the second turn. So Tom Sneva comes down across the line, acknowledging the yellow flag. Johnny Rutherford right behind him. A lap and a quarter, Charlie, and we have our first yellow.
We were surprised in reality that it lasted that long. We thought we might have one on the first lap.
Well, there was a lot of concern for the start of this race with 3 abreast, 37 cars, crowded, a high-speed race course, and they're not really sure, as they would like to be, about the surface of this racetrack. It rained. That took all of the surface that was ground in the early practice away. They had a very short practice. and so now they have to find out about the track.
Larry Cannon into the pits. He was the one that had the problem. Left 11th year of Champ Car racing. Still has no wins, and he is 44 years of age. I mention that because this is not a young man's sport.
No, it's certainly not. The men who have been winning for so long in the past few years all have a great deal of age on them. A great deal to someone like me, to you, Charlie, maybe not so much.
Well, they're very young. They're kids.
Johnny Rutherford, Bobby Unser, Al Unser, all of them well up over their 40s. Bobby Unser is 47 years old.
In fact, a third of the field is 40 or over. The reason being the growth of safety in auto racing. They're simply living a lot longer.
There's no question about that. Bobby Unser will joke about it, but it's a very serious comment that the cars are much safer and therefore the survival rate seems to be higher. So the field coming around now, that is Tom Sneva out in front, Johnny Rutherford tucked in right behind him. They should be able to come back to the green flag rather rapidly as Cannon was able to bring the car in. A quick check of the race course for debris, putting the emergency equipment back in place, and then we should be able to go right back to green flag racing.
And the official standings for the top 5 through 3 laps, of course, 2 of them being under the yellow. Sneva, Rutherford, Krisiloff, Mears, and then Carter.
A lap and a quarter and a yellow flag at the Michigan 500. This gives the crews a chance to settle down a little bit more. Of course, it would be much too early for anyone to even begin to consider a pit stop unless something was seriously wrong on the race car. Now, the indications are that the pace car will head off at the conclusion of this lap, and we will be back to green flag racing once again, beginning at lap number 4. Tom Sneva.
Pole sitter, 201.359 miles an hour. Now, in the older days, with a higher boost into these turbocharged engines, Tom Sneva has the track record from those earlier times at over 211 miles an hour. So he is now ready to bring his machine down through the third turn. Johnny Rutherford sits in right behind them, and already they will begin to line themselves up so they are prepared for the start. The pace car has pulled into the pit area, and Tom Sneva now begins to pick up the power and the speed, and Johnny Rutherford doesn't want to let him get too far away. Rutherford is beginning to tuck in right behind Tom Sneva. Sneva is coming off the 4th turn, looking for the green flag. The green flag is out, and once again we are racing at Michigan International Speedway.
So it is Rutherford going high after Sneva turn 1, and Johnny has a. So Rutherford moves into first place with Sneva running second. Krisiloff is running third. He was challenged by Rick Mears, but he held Mears off, and he is in 4th place. So Rutherford leads for the first time.
Another car spinning in front of the field in the 2nd turn, up toward the wall.
That is Bill Whittington, I believe, car number 94.
It was Whittington that we expected so much out of in the early going. You can see he was hit, and hit hard. He is still in the cockpit of the car. The front right wheel is sitting askew. The wing is askew. Whittington moving his head. Now he's apparently going to try and release the brake and let the car roll down off the banking so that he can get out of the way. So right off the top, 2 problems. Larry Cannon, who was the cause of the first yellow light, moves back into the competition, but Bill Whittington had to let his number 94 roll off of the high banking and come to a stop. He will occupy the last position because he is the first car officially out of the day. That car will not race. Let's try and look at it one more time. Whittington just simply lost it high, and there was a tense moment here as Whittington was in front of a number of cars that had to duck very low to get past him. Fortunately, there was no contact with other equipment. Whittington stopped right there and later let the car roll down off of the racetrack.
Any particular reason the early problems have been in turn 2?
Well, again, it's a situation where we don't know exactly what this race course is doing. There was a short practice yesterday, but the rain of last week washed all of the rubber off the race course, and so they're running a little hard, a little hot. They're not really sure where the racetrack is this early. They better find it pretty quick.
Bill Alsop with the onboard camera.
Look at that, right across the front. Incredible shot from the live onboard camera as Bill Whittington lost it right in front of Bill Alsop, and that's when the driver really sucks in the breath. And what you have to do, Charlie, is simply drive on your line.
Here are the official standings through lap number 6. Rutherford leads it. We'll be back in a moment.
Johncock got problem created by Whittington and smacked something. His car is now on the hook in turn 3, and Gordon Johncock, who was certainly planning to do very well in this race and had every opportunity, he has after all won 3 major events here, is out of the race very, very early on. Let's go down to the pits now and Gary Gerald.
Paul, we're here with Jim McGee, the crew chief for Patrick Racing, and Jim's been anxiously watching a monitor trying to ascertain just what's happened. Jim, your impressions from your radio conversation with Gordy, any indication as to what happened there?
Well, evidently, Whittington spun in front of him, and Gordy just caught him, trying to miss him, so he said it took the right front wheel and damaged it, so that kind of puts us out.
Really an awful tough way to be starting an afternoon that I know you all were looking forward to so much.
Yeah, we made some changes in the car, and Gordy was pretty satisfied with it the first couple of laps that we run, so, you know, we were looking forward to running a little bit longer.
All right, thank you, Jim. I know it's a tough day for you. Let's swing to the other end of the pit now, and Bruce Jenner.
Yeah, Gary, I'm with Bill Burton, Larry Cannon's crew chief, and what happened in that he's been in already 3 times?
We've got a wing situation. Yesterday we was running real good with the wings the way they were. Today we've created some more heat out on the racetrack, and the car is just not like it was yesterday, so we're having a wing problem. We've raised the rear wing 1 turn up. We lowered the wing 3 turns down, and now we put it back up to where it is, so we're going to go ahead and try it this way. We've got a real wing problem here, and I don't know what's going to
Did Larry say that the track was slippery because turn 2 seems to be giving everybody trouble?
Yes, it's a little slippery out there. As you can see, it's a lot hotter today, and that creates problems with right on down the line from engines right on down.
All right, thanks a lot, Bill. Let's go back to Charlie.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Drivers will tell you that if an accident happens in front of you, drive right at it because the car will be gone. So you can see the onboard camera, Bill Alsop, the accident in front. He drives right at the accident and misses the car.
And gets through cleanly. Unfortunately, Gordon Johncock did not. The lights are off on the pace car. They have cleaned up that debris from Bill Whittington's accident, and they are ready to go. That's too bad for Bill Whittington because in yesterday's practice, he was running a full mile an hour faster than he qualified the car. So it has to be a sad moment for Whittington, as well as for Gordon Johncock, who really wanted to do well here, certainly had the capability. Those 2 cars out of the race in the early going. The pace car is off the race course, and now they're bringing them down to the green. This time it is Johnny Rutherford that will lead them to the green flag.
And jumping underneath Rutherford is Tom Sneva, and Rutherford stays high, and Rutherford holds him off down the front straight, which is banked. It is banked at 12 degrees as Rutherford goes into turn 1. Sneva is running second. Krisaloff is third. Rick Mears is running fourth, and then 3 cars side by side are battling for fifth as they sort it out in the middle of the pack.
Now Tom Sneva begins to close ever so much on the back of Johnny Rutherford's car, and Sneva beginning to make a charge as they head for the 3rd turn. Sneva a bit lower on the race course. He's been able to run lower in the corners than Rutherford, but not this time. Rutherford slides her high at over 190 miles an hour. Here comes Sneva making his charge. Rutherford just a bit too high as Sneva is getting around Rutherford, and Sneva will come around and lead lap number 10. So Tom Sneva leading once again, though they are still battling going into the 1st turn. It is Sneva continuing to lead Rutherford, and they are beginning to disappear from Steve Krisaloff and Rick Mears and a group of cars that are sitting back now almost 150 yards behind them.
Rutherford going through turn 2 backed off a little bit from Sneva. So Sneva now has opened a gap the length of a football field. And we point that out because in that back straight, if you blink your eye 1 time, you have gone 100 yards.
Here is the battle behind the leaders as we see Sneva and Rutherford coming by in the bottom of your picture. But here is Steve Krisaloff, Rick Mears, Pancho Carter, and Mike Mosley. That is really a battle for 3rd place as Mosley goes low and now sets his sight on the back end of Krisaloff's car. Mosley is in a stock block powered Eagle, a Dan Gurney design and creation, a stock block they've worked very hard on, and it is beginning to pay off now. Though the durability of this engine has still been in question, certainly its ability to race is not in question. The battle for 3rd. Mike Mosley pulling down just inside Steve Krisaloff, and in the 1st turn forces his way past. So now Mike Mosley has moved into 3rd.
Mike Mosley, with 5 victories to his credit in his IndyCar racing career, has 1 win this year, and that was at Milwaukee. So it is Tom Sneva, Johnny Rutherford, and then Mike Mosley, followed by Steve Krisaloff. They are the top 4 cars.
Mike Mosley still in 3rd place and pulling away from Steve Krisaloff, but now we're seeing a challenge on Krisaloff's machine as Bobby Unser begins to move up through the field. Mike Mosley will be a question mark throughout the afternoon. There is 4th place,
Krisiloff and Bobby Unser beginning to close on him. So it will be an entire afternoon, Charlie. The question will be whether or not the cars will live. They say they want to pace their way through the race. Mike Mosley now pulling up to challenge Johnny Rutherford in the first turn. It's a challenge for second place. There is Mosley moving past Johnny Rutherford and now has set his sights on the leader, Tom Sneva.
So it is Tom Sneva now, Mike Mosley second. Johnny Rutherford is running third, a three-way battle for fourth. Sneva continues to lead very comfortably. Pancho Carter challenging Steve Krisiloff. Carter is running in fifth place.
Carter and Krisiloff getting in quite an argument now for fifth place as Carter on the high side and his number 5 machine forces its way past Steve Krisiloff. Moving up right behind on the inside now is Rick Mears. So they're locked in battle here for this position as well as up in the lead. Now that they have gotten clear of their yellow flag problems in the start, the race has begun to settle down and run smoothly. And we're seeing a lot of battling. Here's first and second. Tom Sneva on the left of your screen. Mike Mosley in the stock block, who won the last kart race at Milwaukee just 2 weeks ago and is doing very, very well here today. That stock block closes up on the back. Looking back in the field now, here is the battle for fifth place as Steve Krisiloff is trying to hold off Rick Mears, who is sitting right behind him, and Rick's teammate Bobby Unser pulls in to join this battle. So team cars of Roger Penske side by side, both with their sights set on Steve Krisiloff.
We have 15 laps complete. It's a 250 lap race, so a lot of racing still to go, 235 laps left. We are live from the Michigan International Speedway. This is the Michigan 500, the first time in television sports history that an IndyCar race at 500 miles has been carried live.
Continuing to watch battles back in the pack, and we will try to bring them to you as they become available to us. Here is Steve Krisiloff as he is still trying to hold off both Rick Mears and Bobby Unser. And it is quite a fight that he is having to just hold on to that fifth place position. Currently the leader is Tom Sneva. Mike Mosley has moved up into second place. Johnny Rutherford dropped back to third. And now Mosley beginning to close even more on the back end of Tom Sneva's car. So a tremendous battle for the lead. And down in Dan Gurney's pits, let's go to Bruce Jenner.
I'm with Mike Mosley's crew chief right now, designer of the car, a man who's no stranger to racing, Dan Gurney. And Mike, right now, the car is running beautifully.
Yes, he is. I'm a little bit surprised at how rapidly he's going. I know he's trying to be comfortable, and we realize it's a long race. We're very happy where he is. So.
Do you think the car has a long enough fuse to make it?
Well, it's as long as we know how to make, and we're going to find out. I don't think anyone knows at this point. We sure hope so.
Your guys are going to win.
Well, that's what it takes. You have to go all the way.
Okay, good luck to you.
Thank you, Bruce.
And now they work their way through lap traffic through turn 3 and head for turn 4. Mike Mosley in car number 48 is currently running second. Tom Sneva in car number 2 is the leader. Johnny Rutherford in car number 1, who was inside of the first row, led in the early going. It was Sneva, then Rutherford, and then Sneva back in the lead.
There's less than half a second now separating these two cars. Barely the wink of an eye as Tom Sneva threads himself past Steve Chassis in the lap traffic, and Mike Mosley follows right on through. As a result of the yellow flags in the early going, they are only averaging just over 110 miles an hour. At lap number 10, they were averaging 97.56 miles an hour. Now Mike Mosley continues his bid to lead this inaugural Michigan 500. But Tom Sneva is doing everything he can to prevent it. Barely half a second, actually closing now to .25, 25 100ths of a second separating the cars. Billy Engelhart, number 29, pulls in for some service. That is early for a pit stop. We really don't expect stops for fuel until lap 30. So if Engelhart is in this early, there is probably something wrong with the machine. The positions number 1 and 2 remain the same. Tom Sneva and Mike Mosley.
Tom Sneva, he is one of the young titans that Paul has talked about. He's 33 years of age, 11th year for riding champ cars. He has a total of 4 wins. Twice he has been national champion. Tom Sneva, car number 2.
Mike Mosley has been working very hard with Dan Gurney on this incredible machine that they have built, the stock block powered Eagle. They've worked very hard and at some great expense with that stock block to try and develop it. They are in hopes that once the engine is developed, that it will only cost about $20,000 to be able to race, as compared with the between $37,000 and $45,000 of the Cosworth engine. The development has been very costly. Dan Gurney has had some very hard times, but it's a pleasure to see this fine driver and fine team here at Michigan International Speedway. Mike Mosley now sitting right on the back end of Tom Sneva's car. 21 laps are now complete. Mosley, a quiet young gentleman in racing. He has enjoyed his racing so much, but he is rather peaceful about it. He doesn't brag. He sits quietly and waits. He lets the race car do its talking.
Bill Whittington went out of the race early, and he's now with Gary Gerald. Gary?
Well, here's Bill Whittington, and Bill, we're glad to see that you're all right. Any indication of what the problem was?
No, I just, first indication, I just want to get out of there. You know, those cars coming by so fast that you don't really have time to look at it and see what happened. You know, it just kind of stares your hair on end.
You had run so well. You have limited experience in these type of cars. Your first time at this track, you were second fast yesterday. This has to be a great disappointment.
I don't know. You know, it's hard to say.
Well, we appreciate the fact that you're all right, that you stood by. We'll go back up to the booth now.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gary. Tom Sneva continuing to lead Mike Mosley, and Mosley tries Sneva underneath as they come through the turn. Sneva holds him off. But Mosley has position, and he slips in behind him. They run into lap traffic.
The report coming up from the pit area, since we had mentioned Billy Engelhart into the pits, they have pushed the car behind the wall, and Billy Engelhart is out of the race. Tom Sneva with Mike Mosley chasing him. We should not be that far from a pit stop now. 23 laps are now complete. Roger Penske told us yesterday he wants to be conservative and get his cars in at lap 30.
So we'll be looking forward to the pits coming in just a few laps.
And Mike Mosley and Tom Sneva going around slower traffic, but Sneva is able to hold them off as they come around Jerry Carl. It looked for a moment like Mosley might have picked up first place, but Sneva still maintains first.
So it is Sneva and Mike Mosley locked in the battle in the early going. 24 laps complete. 226 laps to go. Sneva and Mosley.
They have remained in these relative positions quite steadily through the race, coming up, trying one another, and then dropping back. Let's go down to the pit area where Gary Gerald now has Gordon Johncock.
Thank you, Paul. Gordy, what happened? We understand you were in the traffic when the car spun.
Whittington spun in the center of one.
Gordy, we've got a problem here, I believe, in the track. We're going to go back up to the booth.
We've got all kinds of problems between turn 1 and turn 2. A car went high in trouble. Another car trying to stay away from him came low and spun into the infield.
Pancho Carter down on the grass. That is Larry Dixon sitting up high trying to get restarted. It looked to me like an engine let go. This should bring in pit stops. It's an ideal time for everybody. And indeed, Salt Walter and Steve Chassie have come in. Now we're watching to see if the leaders will come in. First and second place, both heading down the pit road and for their pits. Tom Sneva leads Mike Mosley in. The crews are ready. The tires are laid out. Now Tom Sneva ducks in. He's ready for some fast service. Johnny Rutherford is also in. Mike Mosley is in. Steve Krisiloff. So all of the front-running cars, unfortunately, Pancho Carter, who was running in the first 5, is a part of the accident in the second turn. And so now, as Tom Sneva is first to get away, the lead is being picked up on the race course. Tom Sneva will have to move to get out of this pit as fast as he can. The leader at this moment is Bill Alsop. So he, as a result of not pitting while the rest of the leaders are in, Alsop has picked up the lead.
A.J. Foyt also came in on a pit stop. Dick Simon came in. He's headed back out. So we're still under the yellow with 26 laps complete.
Charlie will have to wait and watch and see what Alsop decides. He's the leader at the moment by nature of this pit stop. He's not made a stop. The rest of the leaders have. And let's see if that onboard camera might be working. It should be exciting. There you see it right behind the pace car. Alsop moving into position, and we'll see if he peels off now and heads down into the pit. Indeed, he does. Bill Alsop heading down that pit road, staring head-on into the pit area at about 150 miles an hour, and he'll grind it to a stop and chalk it over into position. There's his crew member ready as they may come to a stop, and Bill Alsop is in the pits. That sign held up to tell him exactly where to stop so that all of the lines reach the car. Alsop's machine up in the air. Work being done on it. No change of tires. They fuel it, and Bill Alsop will roll underway once again. He's faltered there. It looked like that engine was not start.
We'll be back with more of the Michigan fire. We have a fire in Herm Johnson's pit. It started when he was fueling, and it spread behind the wall.
Johnson was in for a regular refuel, and then suddenly the car burst into flame, and now they have a fire that is burning all around the fuel tank in Herm Johnson's pit. We had some crew members suffering some slight injury. We don't have any indication as to their injury. It did not look as if Johnson was injured, but look at this tremendous fire as the entire pit goes up. They have been trying to fight it now for almost a minute. There was an explosion. An explosion as one of the tanks went. Apparently Herm Johnson's tank let go at the front. Now most of the people moved away, but an explosion in the pits as Herm Johnson's tank did catch fire, and a tire let go. We don't know if the explosion was the result of a tire or is the tank. The tank looks to be intact. They have done everything they can to keep the fire from spreading. The scoring stand is what is actually showing the most fire, though you can't see an alcohol fire, and there is no telling where else there might be fire burning. That white smoke that you're seeing is the Purple K powder that they use to fight the fire.
And in reality, it smothers the fire, draws the oxygen out, and this is something that they've always been afraid of wherever championship cars run.
Now they have closed the pits as a result of this fire. The pits are completely blocked. The cars will have to stay on the course. That brings the question. If I didn't bring my car in for a stop, what happens to me if I run out of fuel on the racetrack? I can't get to my pit. They continue to fight this fire. This has been what they have been afraid of in all of IndyCar racing for so long. A major fire in the pits. They're now bringing in heavy apparatus, big fire trucks coming in. Let's go down to Bruce Jenner, who's on the scene.
Down here in the pits right now, pandemonium has just broke out. It looks like his pit has completely gone up, and the fire tanks, and the tanks are on fire right now. They're trying to put it out. They've got about 4 or 5 units, a lot of people working around there, but it's a lot of pandemonium. Everybody's just sort of clearing out of the area and trying to see what happens. But right now, it's a terrible sight from down here. Charlie?
All right, Bruce, it seems as if they may have it a little under control, but it is still burning. Let's go back moments ago to how it started. Now let's go down to Gary.
Here's Herm Johnson. Herm, I know you're walking in to get some emergency attention. Any idea what happened on that stop?
I just saw a fuel spill, and it flared up, and it was just burning. And
we got to go, Gary.
We got a couple a lot hurt worse than me.
All right, thank you, Herm Johnson. They're taking him in for some emergency aid at this point. He seems to be all right. He has some superficial burns, it would appear, around the face. He'll get some emergency treatment here, and we'll try to update the information, of course, as it's available.
You see here now the replay of that fire. That is his refueler. After the fire at Indianapolis, several of the crews bought new helmets to try and prevent the crew members from being burned in case this happened in a refuel. Apparently, it did some good, though obviously by the way he was jumping around, he was suffering from the heat, probably being burned to a small degree. I want to be very careful, Charlie, not to alarm anyone until we know exactly what happened. The red flag is about to be displayed at Michigan International Speedway. The red flag is out. They are stopping this race. This will change the strategies of everybody drastically.
So here's the situation. We have officially 29 laps complete of 250 laps at the Michigan 500. So we'll take a timeout, and we'll be back here to pick up the race, which is currently under the red flag. We'll be back in a moment.
We're back at Michigan International Speedway, where we have had a tremendous fire in the pits. It started when Herm Johnson's car caught fire during refueling. It spread rapidly to the tank that refuels Herm Johnson's car and then spread up and down the pit area. We had a loud report, a blast from the pits that for a moment we thought was a tank going up. It turned out instead to be a tire exploding, was our latest report. But you can see the tank actually moved a bit as part of the hose caught fire and then exploded. Fortunately, there is a safety shutoff valve between the hose and the front of the tank, so the tank still has its integrity. but we have had injuries here. We have stopped the race. We have closed off the pit area, and they have several individuals who have been injured as a result of this. At least one was the refueler from Herm Johnson's machine.
And in addition, the fire has spread up and down the pits as far as 4 or 5 pits away. Some of the crew members have caught fire and then have been put out, had the fire put out around them. Now let's go down to Bruce Jenner. Bruce?
Charlie, Johnny Rutherford is with me, and Johnny, this is something you don't like to see in racing.
No, you really don't. Of course, it's especially in the pits where there are so many people confined and gathered, it makes it a little tough, and you wonder where it is immediately. My thoughts were to my pit and Betty and what might be going on there, but they were far enough away. Jim Hall, the owner, told me that they weren't in any danger. But it's really a shame, and I think it's time we really had an inquiry into
do you think they should look in to see if they can do something about this?
Yes, definitely.
Because I was down there at the pits, and it looked like when they were pulling the fueler off, a lot like what happened to Mears, the gas spread all over, and then they were in trouble, and it spread on the ground and spread everywhere, and it started going from one pit to the next.
Yes, and that's a problem. We obviously have got to look at the way we refuel these cars and make them better.
All right, how was it out there on the track?
Well, it's a little slippery.
We had a few spin-outs in the first few laps.
Yes, I think the guys were caught unawares, and my car wasn't handling like it was even yesterday in practice, so we're working on it, and I think we'll be right when we restart.
All right, well, everything seems to be the fire's out from right now from what we can see. They're still trying to cool down the gas tanks. Let's go back up to Charlie.
All right, thank you, Bruce. The Michigan 500 has been stopped at this point in time due to the fire in the pits that started when Herm Johnson came into the pits, got loose from him, spread through 3 or 4 pits.
They have now brought in a regular large fire truck which has laid out hoses all the way through. There you see the white and red fire apparatus. Both of them are pumpers capable of delivering thousands of gallons per minute of water. They have a number of lines now laid out to the pit area. The fire is out, but what they are doing now is trying to cool these fuel tanks. They picked up tremendous heat during that fire, which probably spread 30 or 40 feet in either direction of Herm's pit. And now they have to try and cool those tanks down. You can see them just pouring water over the fuel tanks. Then they'll have to clean up the pit area. There is fire extinguisher powder all over the place as there is water. And then they will have to bring the field in and line them up. Here is the order that they will line them up in. Charlie?
The standings officially through lap 29, Tom Sneva, Rutherford, Mosley, Bobby Unser, and then Mears. Now, we will be back to cover this story. We'll stay right on top of it, and, of course, the conclusion of the race. A week of hope in baseball. Let's go to Brian Gumbel in Dodge.
Michigan 500, where after 29 laps, the race has been stopped. Red flag due to a fire in the pits of Herm Johnson that then spread over 3 or 4 pits. Several crew members have been injured. We will have a report for you on that as soon as we get it. And this is what happened. This was about 5 or 7 minutes ago. And remember that this fuel, once it catches fire, you cannot see it. So it is very dangerous from that standpoint. You simply cannot see this fuel when it is burning.
That's the thing that everybody worries about on an alcohol fire. It's not visible. It can be very dangerous because it's not. These crewmen run back and forth while they're on fire. Could possibly set fire to something else.
All right, now let's go down to Gary Gerald. Gary?
Obviously very hectic down here at the infield track hospital. At the track hospital, a tremendous amount of activity. Mike Knight has been checking on injuries. Mike, can you give us an update here in the early minutes?
Yes, driver Herm Johnson has minor facial burns. He's being treated in the track hospital right now. One of his crew members, Greg Nelson, is being treated for 1st and 2nd degree burns of the feet. A member of the Penske pit crew has been in with a lacerated leg. He's been released. Steve Edwards, the director of safety, received some burns to his feet. He's being treated right now. There are a few more people who are going to be brought in, but they are all injuries of a minor nature, minor burns, and people who are going to receive some oxygen.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much. We appreciate the cooperation on this, and we would update the fact that 3 support standby fire departments have responded after the call from the infield safety crew here. They were pouring 4,000 gallons a minute of water on the tanks in an effort to cool them. There was, we could see, a lot of devastation of pit equipment, but certainly this first report is very encouraging at this time. And Mike, as we're standing here, we're wondering, do you have any indication if this race will be restarted?
It will be. The technical crew of CART is already in the process of making the preparations to restart the race. As soon as the situation in the pits allows us to restart, we will.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go back upstairs.
All right, thank you, Gary, for that report. Now, it is at times like this, the first person you think of course, the wife. The wife of the driver, the wives of the crewmen. One of the best known is Betty Rutherford, the wife of Johnny Rutherford, and Paul Page had a chance to visit with Betty Rutherford.
Oh, brother, if you're on your own, dedicate your heart. Girl, if you're out there.
I think your first comment was this has really been a tough year for racing.
Well, what I meant was the tough year for fires in racing. I can't give you answers for it all happening. I can't give you reasons for Indianapolis happening like it did. We're really safer than we've ever been for fire. It's just we're in an era of having fire problems, and thank God nobody's getting hurt too bad, but it's beyond my words to explain it. I couldn't even give you a good explanation for this. I mean, it's the second time for poor Herm Johnson. He had a problem at Milwaukee, and then another problem today, and lo and behold, at Milwaukee, he was just almost next door to our pit.
Right.
And then again here, he was right next door to us, and I just don't know. It shouldn't happen. We shouldn't have these fires. We're plenty safe, but I guess we are having them.
At this point now, they've said that you're going to be restarting this race. It's got to be awful tough, I think, to get your mind back to racing, which is going to be coming up here in the next who knows how many minutes.
No problems there. The drivers that run this race are pros. That won't bother them. The things that bother is like my pit was right next to his, and I got a lot of things that are burned.
Okay.
And I'm going to be short some items.
Right.
But we'll borrow some and makeshift, and now it looks like we'll get by all right. But for a while, it looked like it was really desperate, like we were possibly even going to have to pull out of the race because lack of things to run with, like tires, like wheels.
Appreciate your comments, Bobby. We'll let you get back to the crew. Right now, we're going to switch to Bruce Jenner.
Gary, just a few minutes ago, this pit was ready to service a race car, and right now it's completely destroyed. And with me is John Menard. Now, John, you were on the right front tire when it went up.
That's right.
Do you know exactly what happened?
Well, I just stopped the car. I looked up. They were fueling the car. I started back around to check the left front tire. I saw Greg pull the hose back out of the car that fills the car. The thing that automatically closes the fuel valve stuck, and the fuel started going all over. I knew it was going to happen, and I started for the water pail that's in the pit, and by the time I got to the water pail, it was burning already. I started back over the wall and threw it at the driver and at Greg, and by that time the fire extinguisher started going off. And it was just...
Do you know the conditions in any other pit crews?
As far as I know, our crew chief, Dan Coda's got a slight burn on one hand. Greg, the fellow that was doing the fueling's feet are fairly badly burned, and our driver, Herm, has got facial burns, and one other fellow's got the hair burned off his hand, but not seriously.
But nobody's seriously injured?
Nobody's really seriously injured. Greg has the most serious injuries on his feet. They were spraying the fire foam on his chest and head, thinking that was on fire, and his feet was burning. And it was just unfortunate that nobody got to him right away. Otherwise, I think he would have been...
It's the second time for you guys. That makes it difficult.
Second time, and we really didn't need that.
Getting a little gun shy.
Yes, sir.
I don't blame you. All right, let's go back up to Charlie.
All right, thank you, Bruce. It was just not quite an hour ago that the race started, and one of NBC summer season innovations is an onboard camera in Bill Alsop's race car, in car number 7. He was in the inside of the third row, and this is what the start looked like from a driver's view.
The green flag already beginning to fly now. As he accelerates, you can see how fast the front row pulled away. That yellow car is Johnny Rutherford, and Sneva is right down in front of him. Directly in front is Pancho Carter. And he pulled the low line, allowing some of the traffic up high going into the first turn. I'm absolutely amazed at these pictures. Remember, the camera is just about 4 inches off the ground, right down in the nose. Now here comes Mike Mosley by. Look what a tremendous job of driving he did. And look, too, how close they are. Mosley kicking up some dusties down so low. Alsop decides to drop in behind him.
What kind of speeds were they doing early in the race here, Paul?
Well, they were probably picking up to about 195 miles an hour at this point, because they're really coming up to full speed as they come across the line now.
tremendous little camera. Just an incredible job. The total package weighs only 10.5 pounds. The camera itself is only 1.5 pounds. And Arnie Reef and Bob McKieran and our technical people, Fred Hamelfarb, Chuck Reisner, Tony Dia, Bob Decker, Phil DeFeo, have worked constantly for several weeks on just the pictures you're looking at, and they have done a fine job.
Also qualified, to give you an idea, at 197 miles an hour. We're still under the red flag here. We will be back, of course, to keep this story covered, and we will also be back for the start of the race when it's restarted. Today, one of the feature dates, the English Thoroughbred calendar.
Most definitely. It's nice to be competitive. All right, Mike Mosley, he's set. He's ready to go down here in car number 48. Let's go to Bruce Jenner. Right now I'm with Tom Sneva. And Tom, they put you back a few places, although you were leading at the time.
Well, I'm not sure there's some confusion on the scoring. Some of these guys feel they should either be able to pack up behind us or whatever, but this is part of the deal. It's still early and we've got a long ways to go.
Certainly do, and your car is running very well.
We're happy with it. If it'll just keep running like it has been, we'll be in good shape.
Okay, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Charlie?
All right, Bruce, something that you might notice, Mike Mosley and Tom Sneva both wearing glasses. Under the rules, you are not allowed to wear contact lens when you drive in a kart race.
Well, that's a pretty straightforward situation. If you would have something go wrong with your contact lens, a little particle of dirt or dust under it, or if it would blow off your eye, then you're in real trouble. So contact lenses have not been allowed in any form of racing.
And I'd like to mention, I mentioned this story before on Tom Sneva, but he says that when he goes to the driver's meeting, he's got an extra thick pair of glasses that he wears to the driver's meeting so he can worry the other drivers.
Kind of reinforce everybody's. Bobby Unser is in his machine and ready. It looks like they're getting very close to the start of this race. A restart, actually, after a very long red flag.
And something that we might watch for, they will run, as we have been told, then 4 laps under the yellow. Those laps will count. Several cars did not come in under the yellow before the red. They can then come in under this yellow of the 4 laps. They can pick up their fuel and tires if they need it and then go back out. So that'll be interesting to see who makes that particular move.
They have just changed the scoring lineup. They are now going to start the cars, they say, in order, which means that Tom Sneva will be at the head of the serial behind the pace car.
All right. So we are awaiting the restart of the Michigan 500, a total of 250 laps. We have 29 laps complete. We'll be back with more of the Michigan 500 in just a moment.
And there was a continuing fire at the fuel tank, and it burned for some time.
And we now have the restart of the race as the pace car is pulling out. At the IndyCar race is pulling out behind them, as we mentioned. Tony Bittenhausen, Bob Lazier, and Saul Waller, the first 3, then followed by the order of the race, and they will, as they come through turn 2, be dropping back and picking up their proper position. So the restart here, under the yellow, we will be running 4 laps under the yellow before the start, and the first lap as they come around, because on the red, they stopped immediately on the track, right where you were, and that will be as they come through. The first lap under the yellow will be the 30th lap of this 250 lap race. This is a 2-mile oval here at Michigan International Speedway. The turns here are banked at 18 degrees. The back straight is almost flat. It has a 5-degree bank. The front straight, although it looks flat, in reality is not. It has a 12-degree bank along the front straight.
You can see them pull up on the bank right now. There is one other point. As you saw the cars pull out, Larry Dixon and Pancho Carter both were able to move back into the field. They were involved in spins, Dixon actually touching the wall that caused the yellow that started the red, but they are both back in the field.
Here's a correction. Rick Mears is currently 5th, so it is Tom Sneva, Johnny Rutherford, Mike Mosley, Bobby Unser, and Rick Mears. We are under the yellow now, but we have the restart underway at the Michigan 500. So we will be back with more racing in just a moment. Of course, under the yellow with about 2 1/4 laps to go before we'll have the green. 32 cars in the restart. Herm Johnson, Cliff Husel, Billy Englehart, Gordon Johncock, and Bill Whittington, the 5 cars that are out of the race from the original field of 37.
Yellow flag is out. It will remain out. Your leader is Tom Sneva. Johnny Rutherford is right behind him. This is a very important series of laps for them under the yellow. They want to get a good look at the race course, especially in the first and second turns. The cause of Larry Dixon's spin was apparently an oiling down that was done by Phil Kaliva's car. They have put oil dry out on the track to try and dry it race car has actually come over at its speed a bit, they're not going to know too much about it. So they really want to examine that turn. There's some oil dry all up and down the first turn, and the cars are running through it. Hopefully they'll blow a bit of it off before they come back to speed. But that is a concern for them.
Paul, what kind of a situation, something that we have a moment here before we do get the green flag, what do we have from a driver's standpoint, from a car standpoint, a 500-mile race against basically a track that is banked all the way around rather than a flat track like at Indianapolis?
Well, the greatest problem is potential fatigue. The centrifugal force is causing lateral G-loading. In other words, very simply, he's just being pushed to the right in the cockpit. He's being forced over by the centrifugal force. That's very fatiguing. They wear collars around their necks. They wear little straps connected from their helmet to their shoulders to try and keep their head upright. But with the helmet on there and the extra weight of the helmet and the G-loading that they're receiving, they're just being pushed over constantly, and that contributes to fatigue. So they're trying to relax as best they can.
A delay of close to an hour and 35 minutes will simply add to that fatigue factor, I would think, mental as well as physical.
Well, on the other hand, they did have this time to relax, so I don't know how much relaxation they got. This has certainly been some tense moments for them, and it's been a matter of great concern. Are their friends injured? What's happened? What will happen to me? So I don't think they got that much relaxation. It probably did, in fact, add to their fatigue.
We are still under the yellow at the Michigan 500. We now have officially 31 laps complete. 4 laps under the yellow before we'll have the green, as we mentioned.
Several of the cars have begun using a technique of serpentining back and forth. Jose Garza was doing it just a moment ago. What they are concerned about there, though Tom Sneve and Johnny Rutherford don't seem too concerned about it, is to try and wear their tires back up to the operating temperature just above 210 degrees so they'll stick well when they come back to the start. You see several of the cars actually doing that. Now, car number 57, Cliff Husel, has brought his machine into the pits. Apparently something wrong on his car. They're looking in the engine compartment. They have a report that it is leaking oil, so they're taking a look at that.
The weather a lot different than it was a week ago where we had the postponement due to the rain. We started with a hazy, cloudy day and the sun was shining, although clouds have begun to move in on us right now. The forecast is that there would be rain, but it would be this evening. About 7 o'clock this evening was the official forecast that we had.
Still another couple of yellow laps will be run. The pace car is staying out. Again, they want to take a long look at the race course, and if Cliff Husel was oiling, then they want to look at him even further and make sure he didn't add anything to it. The pace car has begun to speed up, and Charlie, it looks like we're going back to green at lap 34.
It'll be Tom Sneva, Johnny Rutherford, Mike Mosley, Bobby Unser, Rick Mears, the top 5, then followed by Steve Krisiloff, Al Unser, Jose Garza, Tom Bigelow, Gary Bettenhauser, Dick Simon.
And they begin to pick up the revs and speed now. The pace car is coming off, and Tom Sneva is leading them back to the green flag.
And the green flag is waving, and here comes Sneva, Rutherford, Mosley, Unser. So Sneva continues to run all over the race course. He can, at this point in time, do almost anything that he wants to as he holds the lead over Johnny Rutherford. Rutherford has opened a lead over Mosley in 3rd, and in 4th is Bobby Unser, and those 4 have separated themselves from the other race car.
Tom Sneva's got to be happy with that car. It's running so very well, he can literally drive it anywhere he wants.
Coming through 3 and headed for turn 4, and Mosley makes his move as he comes underneath.
Mosley closing on Johnny Rutherford. Right back up on the back end of Rutherford's machine. Mosley coming across the line down low. He's challenging Johnny Rutherford for 2nd place. And Mosley pushes his nose past. Though can he hold on to it all the way through the turn? He and Rutherford are equal and side by side through the 2nd turn. Now Mosley forges his way ahead and moves into 2nd place and begins now a challenge of the leader, Tom Sneva.
And so the outstanding driver so far has been Mike Mosley. He started back in the 12th position. He's back in 2nd where he has been before. Tom Sneva leads, and now coming into turn 4, Mosley is underneath Sneva. He's got position on him as he heads down the front straight. It is Sneva and Mosley. Mosley challenging underneath Sneva. Sneva holds him off as they go into turn 1. And then a challenge to Rutherford by Bobby Unser.
So first and second place, both being hotly contested here. Here is Mike Mosley alongside Tom Sneva. You can see Bobby Unser challenging Johnny Rutherford. They're on the backstretch, and the tremendous power of Mike Mosley's stock block engine is paying off right now. Though Sneva now beginning to pull just a bit ahead, and he takes the turn ahead of Mike Mosley. So Sneva maintains the lead. He had the lead coming across the line, will be scored as the leader on the last lap. But Mosley is not giving up. He's continuing to battle.
So Mosley again challenges underneath. Unser challenges Rutherford underneath, but neither can take. So it is Sneva, Mosley, Rutherford, and Bobby Unser, the top four.
Mike Mosley is operating so low on the race course. It's a good place to run on a high bank. If he can hold on to it tight, he can come off the corner a little bit better. There he's done it, but it seems that Tom Sneva's motor picks up revs at the end of the straightaway, and he forges ahead as he's doing now.
So again, Tom Sneva holds off the challenge of Mike Mosley. We have 37 laps complete. We're coming to lap number 38. And Mosley underneath Sneva, and he takes him out of turn 4. So it is Mosley in front of Sneva. Sneva again at the end of the front straight, going high with the extra power that Paul was talking about. He stays side by side as they go for turn 2, and Sneva has the lead again. Rutherford is running third. Bobby Unser is running fourth.
What a fine battle for first place as Mosley came off the line just a nose ahead of Sneva. Two fantastic racing drivers as they're battling around the 2 miles bank at Michigan International Speedway. Here's the battle for second place. Johnny Rutherford and Bobby Unser. Rutherford has been able to hold Unser back, but now Unser just screams past Rutherford. And the question is Rutherford slowing?
It is Sneva, Mosley, Unser, and Rutherford, the top four. Again, they are separated from the other cars as they go through turn 1 and head for turn 2. But Sneva, as you said, has to be tremendously pleased with the way that that machine is operating. A new car this year.
Going around this racetrack like it's on rails. It is not that old a car. It was built to George Bignotti's specification, there is a car coming in now into the pits. Car 45 is Harry McDonald, apparently a flat tire. They'll change it rapidly. Talking again about Tom Sneva's car and their chief mechanic, George Bignotti, the winningest mechanic in all of IndyCar racing, told the March Company what he wanted out of the car. They built it for him, and they delivered it, and immediately it was a very, very fast machine. It's barely 3 months old, and look at it, leading this race, though Mike Mosley is certainly giving it a run for its money.
40 laps complete down the back straight side by side. It is Mosley on the inside. Sneva again with the extra acceleration at the end of the straight continues to hold the lead into the turns. Now they run into lap traffic. Sneva will go high. He has the door closed on him. Mosley comes underneath, uses the lap traffic, and he takes the lead. Mike Mosley takes the lead.
So Mike Mosley just splits up and goes around, and Tom Sneva has to drop in behind. I wonder if what Johnny Rutherford hasn't been thinking through all of this is, why should I run so hard so early? And maybe he's satisfied just to stay in close contact with the leaders.
And earlier we asked Mike Mosley if he exercised to prepare for this 500-mile race.
No, I haven't. No, we just try to make the car as comfortable as possible for me so that I don't get tired as far as handling and so on. If you have to fight the car all day long, you're never going to survive. So you got to have a well-handling car to run all day, to run fast all day.
An important point, the comfort of the car. The seats are molded to the bodies of the drivers.
It's very hard to really be truly comfortable in one of these machines. Let's take a look at this battle for third. Johnny Rutherford is leading Bobby Unser once again. So apparently Rutherford decided maybe it's not so good an idea to let Bobby roll past me, and I'm going to get back into this competition.
Now they have dropped back as a pair about 300 yards behind Tom Sneva, who's now in second. Mike Mosley is the leader, and he's opened up a comfortable margin over Tom Sneva once that they got into lap traffic and he was able to move around.
Alex Wesley, the dependability of we've been calling it stock block, which is really a misnomer. It's a push rod engine. Most of the components in it are really designed for racing, though the basic design of it is a stock block engine. And the question is, how dependable will it be? How long can it continue to do what it's doing now, which is leading this 500?
The strength of the stock block engine. The strength, we'll talk about that in just a moment as we continue with our coverage of the Michigan 500. We'll be back in just a moment.
We're back 5 at the Michigan 500, where Pancho Carter in car number 5 has begun to move back up through the field. Now, he was the 4th fastest qualifier, but then when one car oiled down the track, both he and Larry Dixon spun. Pancho was able to get the car restarted, moved up to 19th position immediately thereafter, but he has been flying on this racetrack. Moments ago, he unlapped himself from A.J. Foyt, who was running 8th at the time, and Pancho is trying to get back into the fight now.
And there's Pancho Carter. Now let's go back to the battle between Johnny Rutherford in 3rd and Bobby Unser in 4th, as Rutherford now holding that margin over Bobby Unser. Unser took over 3rd, and Rutherford took it right back just about a lap later, and Johnny has held on to the number 3 position as Mike Mosley continues to lead and Tom Sneva continues to run 2nd.
Mike Mosley's car has been running very well. We've talked a lot about its engine, but I think we also have to talk about this new Eagle chassis with the smaller rear wing. I think that that chassis is adding to his ability to race here, because he's driving the car anywhere he wants to, high or low on the banking. So the combination of engine, the car, and certainly Mike Mosley are paying off for Dan Gurney and his team here today.
But let's go back to the strength of that particular engine. The strength is power in the turns. Is that correct?
Well, it is on most racetracks, the fact that it has more torque, more ability to accelerate. But on a high bank like this, several of the drivers told me that they are only wavering about 200 RPMs between their fastest and their slowest engine speed.
And there is Jerry Carl. Carl, one of the Chargers, and we expect to see him move up throughout the afternoon.
Jerry Carl with his stock block machine is one of the cars that does not have the financial support that so many people do. And earlier we had an opportunity to analyze a rich team and a poor team.
A real story is developing back in 2nd place, because Jerry Carl in the red and white number 38 in a machine powered by a standard American Chevrolet stock block engine is doing battle with the former world driving champion Mario Andretti in a highly sophisticated Cosworth power machine. Back at the Phoenix 150, that tremendous battle for 2nd place has just ended in an oily cloud of disappointment for Jerry Carl as his engine has let go. A richly deserved standing ovation from the fans here in Phoenix for Jerry Carl. A tremendous fight. He kept that stock block engine running. Gotta be a happy guy.
Auto racing is very expensive. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to operate a team for a year. And in these days of double-digit inflation, the problem of racing may be a rich team versus a small team. The question is, how can the small team compete? Take, for example, Jerry Carl versus Roger Penske. Roger Penske's race cars go to the racetrack in style in this large truck. Now, it doesn't just carry the cars. Inside, there is a complete machine shop, and it also serves as the base station for the race car's two-way radio communication. When the Penske racing team goes to a racetrack, they bring along a large entourage. There are 3 cars, 3 drivers, they have a backup car, and a crew of over 30 mechanics. Along with that, they have enough spare parts to build up yet another race car, should it be necessary. Jerry Carl's truck doesn't have the fresh new paint job or the bright glittering chrome that Roger Penske's does, and inside, there's not nearly the sophisticated equipment either. Jerry Carl, unlike Roger Penske's drivers, has to work on the race car himself. His full-time help consists of 2 extra people. He picks up some other fellows that come along on the weekend and help him race. He has 1 old race car and 1 backup motor.
Some people have the idea you got to have a couple $1 million to go IndyCar racing, and that's not true at all. You can do a real good job for a sponsor for somewhere in the area of $250,000 a year. If you use your head and you have a cooperative bunch, you know, you can also be foolish and throw a lot of money away, waste a lot of money. We get along right now and a lot less than that. And of course, these aren't new cars. We built these cars last year. They're last year's equipment, and we've got 4 stock block engines that we built for this season that we've been struggling through with.
Jerry Carl's financial struggles would ease if he had sponsorship, but sponsors are noticeably absent from his car. Carl has 1 cash sponsor, Tonko Trailers. They contribute about $50,000 to his racing effort. Randall's total budget for the year is approximately $250,000. His car cost about $35,000. One stock block engine about $20,000. This year, Carl has won $46,456 in prize money. But the Roger Penske Racing Team has 3 major sponsors: A.B. Dick, Gould, and Norton. Each contributes a minimum of $250,000 to $300,000 to Penske Racing. Lesser sponsors include Goodyear, Cam2, Craco, and Champion Spark Plugs. The total budget for Penske Racing this year is $2.3 million. Penske uses Cosworth engines, which cost $45,000 apiece, and this year has won $268,564.
It's kind of tough for us right now. We are short, and we're trying to put together our budget for next year. And of course, the way the economy is today, it's kind of hard to find the money that you need to switch, either transform these cars to Cosworth engines or update to a later car and a Cosworth engine. You know, we almost won the race at Phoenix. We had a chance at it. We were running second with 18 laps to go and broke. And of course, we were catching Tom Sneva, who was the eventual winner. And the people went crazy, and that's what the people want to see: competition. Roger Penske had the same sponsors and had brand new cars and the Cosworth engines, and yet we were able to outrun Mario Andretti for second place at Phoenix, and that's racing. When a guy has if a crew is good enough and an engine builder is good enough and a driver is good enough to be able to do that.
Of course, everyone who does drive has access to the big bucks it takes to race. Whether it's 3 mechanics or 30, a bright, shiny truck, or a faded old one, the beauty of this sport is that occasionally the poor man's team wins.
We are back live, and we are under the yellow. Salt Walter had a problem down the back straight.
There is Jerry Carl, who is right behind the pace car. All of the leaders came in as a result of the yellow flag that came out when Salt Walter blew his engine. There's apparently oil on the track. We have several other cars beginning to show light blue smoke at the back that indicate that they are leaking something too. There is a machine on the back stretch that Salt Walter, there he is when he blew his engine. He put his hand in the air right away to say that he was slowing, but when he did that, of course, a lot of oil came out, Charlie. Jerry Carl behind the pace car, moving slowly under the yellow flag.
We have officially 55 laps complete. This is a race of 250 laps, so we have 195 still to go. The Michigan 500, and that's Dick Simon's car. There's smoke coming out of there.
He had problems in his pit stop just a few moments ago. He was showing that billowing smoke then, and maybe it'll clean up when he gets back to acceleration.
Now let's go down to Gary Gerald.
We're alongside Salt Walter here in his pits. He just climbed out of the car, very quickly peeled off the long john, the flame-proof underwear. It's hot out there, huh, Salt?
Yeah, it's very hot. You got a 33 or 34 degree bank here, and it just pushes the driver. You got about a 3 G-force down in there. And we're in the double-layer uniform along with the fireproof underwear. It's darn hot out there.
Well, why are you here in the pits talking to us rather than out there in the racetrack?
I wish I knew. It looked like we'd moved up into 3rd or 4th place again, and the car just running beautifully. And just let an engine just let go, but as they say, that's racing. So we just have to learn to accept it.
I know you were running at Pocono a few weeks back. This is your 2nd time in this car, one of the March cars. Have you been pleased with the way the car's responded to you?
This is not a March. This is the car that Tom missed the Indy 500 with, Tom Sneva, and Dad and I worked a deal, so I'm driving for George McNaughty, but we hope to purchase the car. They did a lot of work on it and changed it since Indy. It didn't make the show, but it's a Phoenix car with March suspension. And at Pocono, we're right on the track record, so we were capable of winning that. So I'm very pleased with the performance of the car and the crew. Everybody's been great. It's just, airplanes aren't supposed to crash, but they do. Race car engines break too. What can you say?
All right, thank you very much. David Salt Walter, number 21, now out of the race.
All right, thank you, Gary. 56 laps officially completed. We are still under the yellow. We now have Rick Mears out in front. He is the current leader. Mike Mosley 2nd, Johnny Rutherford 3rd, Bobby Unser 4th, Steve Krisloff 5th, as we had several pit stops immediately after the yellow flag came out.
And Tom Sneva, as a result of his stop, may have dropped back behind Steve Krisloff, but we're anticipating a green flag now. The green flag out and flying, showing first to Jerry Carl, but now our leader's coming down toward the line, and as the green flag comes out, several cars, including Dick Simon, who we mentioned earlier, have begun to smoke on the track. It looks like Simon's engine's done for the day. There's Mike Mosley as he makes his bid to get back in front once again.
So Mike Mosley has been the story thus far in the early going of the Michigan 500. Mike, in his 15th year of driving championship cars, is a total of 5 wins, including the victory this year at Milwaukee, and he's 34 years of age.
Mike Mosley, a fine young champion with years and years of IndyCar experience behind him, and yet he has yet to win a 500-mile race. So he's out front now in a design that has not proven to be that successful so far, the stock block engine, but maybe he can make it work today.
Rick Mears running second. Johnny Rutherford is running third.
Now we're getting a change in some of the lineup. What we're actually looking at is a battle for second place. The white car, the light car, is Al Unser, and he is leading Johnny Rutherford. Al currently being scored in second, Johnny Rutherford in third, and Al beginning to pull away just a little bit. You saw some puffs at the back of his car. I think that is smoke from the tires as the car was bottoming, going over some of the bumps on this 2-mile track.
Mike Mosley continues to lead. As we look back in the back, that is Johnny Rutherford in car number 1, representative of the defending national champion. Mosley is driving a car of Dan Gurney's. Now, Gurney has fallen on hard times recently. It has been, 3 or 4 years since Gurney's car has really been that competitive.
Well, Mosley has tried, Dan Gurney, the whole operation has tried to get that engine working. Here's Scott Brayton down in the pits making what appears to be a less than routine stop. They're trying to get the car up on the jacks. Now they have done it. And they want to work on that left rear tire and apparently change it. Maybe there's something else wrong in the suspension.
And we will now update the standings. Mike Mosley leading, Johnny Rutherford running second. Bobby Unser is third, Al Unser is fourth, Rick Mears is fifth, followed by Steve Krisiloff. Tom Sneva is now running seventh. A.J. Foy is currently in eighth. Garza is in ninth, and Alsop is running 10th. That is an update as we have it through 60 laps.
Boy, there we saw it again. Just a puff of blue smoke as a car went over that bump going into the third turn. They really bottom out going into that corner. Johnny Rutherford sitting in second place behind Mike Mosley. Mosley has a tremendous lead. In fact, not even showing in the picture right now. The battle's really sitting back in second place.
We'll put a clock on Mike Mosley and Johnny Rutherford to give you the seconds between them as they come by the start-finish line. They're now, Mosley is going through turn number 3 headed for 4, and Rutherford now goes into turn 3. So almost a 2-turn difference. So we'll pick up the interval.
Here comes Mike Mosley down to come across the line. Mike Mosley comes across, waiting for Johnny Rutherford to come through now. And Johnny Rutherford comes through 5.4 seconds behind Mosley.
So it is Mike Mosley continuing to lead, Rutherford running second, with Bobby Unser, Tom Sneva, and Al Unser in that order, the top 5. 62 laps complete of 250 laps. A 2-mile oval here at Michigan International Speedway. And in reality, it is banked throughout the racetrack. And we'll be back with more coverage with 65 laps complete. This is Mike Mosley. He is the leader. Johnny Rutherford is now running second. Tom Sneva has moved back to third. Bobby Unser is fourth, and Al Unser is running fifth.
What a terrific afternoon for Mike Mosley. He won the last race. Maybe Dan Gurney and the crew have finally found out what has plagued them for so long, as the machine just is running so well. He pulls down the backstretch into the corner, runs anywhere he wants to on the racetrack. Johnny Rutherford is doing everything he can to chase him. Let's see if, as he comes onto the main stretch now, we can get the interval between first place Mike Mosley and second place Johnny Rutherford. Mosley comes across the line. The clock is running. Before it was just a tick over 5 seconds. It is about the same right now. Johnny Rutherford hampered by traffic, 5.4 seconds behind Mike Mosley.
In reality, Rutherford has started to close because he dropped back moments ago, and he was at 7, almost 8 seconds behind Mosley.
Well, Rutherford now is still having to contend with some slower traffic.
Tom Sneva now running third. Sneva, the early leader, dominated the race before Mosley took over.
And for a few laps, Sneva had to do battle with Bobby Unser, but he's finally been able to disentangle himself from Unser and has moved cleanly into third place.
68 laps complete of 250 laps of the race.
Mike
Mosley's car continues to operate smoothly. The field, for the most part, has really strung itself out. There are a couple of small battles going on well down in the back, and we'll try to get a couple of those for you. But up in the front, it's Mike Mosley, car number 48, who is trying to win this race, and at the moment doing a fine job. We have a car that has slowed, pulled off the course, car number 96, that's Dick Ferguson, who has pulled down off the course. Apparently something going wrong in his machine, and it doesn't look like he is intending in any way to put it back in the race, but we'll keep an eye on 96 Dick Ferguson for you.
But Mosley now leads Johnny Rutherford by almost the length of the back straight, which, to give you an idea, is the length of 11 football fields.
On this race course, speed is something so hard really to perceive. Mike Mosley is traveling every second well over the length of a football field. So the speed here, coming on the main straightaway, he will touch 200 miles an hour and sometimes be a mile or two an hour over it. Looking again to pick up some interval. Mosley's already across the line. There comes Johnny Rutherford. We'll pick up the interval for you in a few minutes.
The interval, we have been informed, was 6 seconds, so Mosley continues to edge away from Johnny Rutherford. 70 laps complete.
A tremendous battle developing now at 5th place as Al Unser and Steve Krisolov have been fighting back and forth. Unser is now pushed past Krisolov. It's now lapping some slower traffic, and Krisolov has to string himself in. That's Al Unser out in front as he comes past the 57 car of Cliff Husel, and Vern Schupan is also in there, though they are being lapped at this moment.
Al Unser, at 42 years of age, has 36 wins to his credit. Krisolov driving car number 40. And that is Andretti's car.
It looks like Kevin Kogan has his problems. He's slowing on the racetrack. There is Kogan down low. Can't tell if he is under power or not, but this young man has been spectacular all year. He has quietly moved up to high place finish in almost all of the races he's been in. Here's Jerry Carl. He comes in, picking up fuel from his pit crew. They decide the tires are all good. His stock block engine roars. He gets a drink of some sort of fluid to refresh himself and throws the bottle back over the pit wall. It's a plastic bottle, so it won't break, and he's on his way.
Mike Mosley, the leader. Back to a final note on Kevin Kogan. He is a rookie, but he is the 5th leading money winner this year. 72 laps complete.
Mike Mosley still handily out in front. Second place is now Tom Sneva, who has managed to move up and put himself in position behind Mike Mosley, though he is well back from the leader. Looking at the interval now, and this should be an interval to Johnny Rutherford, who is in second. 7.6 seconds.
So on Rutherford, Mosley is picking up about a second every 2 laps as far as the interval is concerned.
We have a yellow flag
is out. Yellow is out.
Report is that we have a car slowed to a stop on the backstretch. Car number 73 has come to a stop. Car slowed on the backstretch. Apparently no problem. All of the crews are there with the machine. That's Kevin Kogan. That's car 73, but Kevin Kogan, who we saw slowing earlier, and he finally came to a rest, but he was in a precarious area. You can see him right on the edge of the racetrack, and so they had to turn the yellow flag on.
We are under the yellow with 74 laps complete. At the Michigan 500, Mosley leads. We'll be back in a moment. Car 31, that is Larry Dixon. He has stalled and has stepped out of his car. But we also, while we were away, had some more action in the pits.
Well, we had Harry McDonald starting to pull out, and then the left rear tire bounced off. You can see the tire bouncing through the air in this replay, and Al Unser darts over to miss it. Steve Krisolov really takes a jump almost into the pit wall, and then Bill Alsop comes through, and Bob Lazier hits the brakes hard. Then they both cut for their pits, and finally the tire rolls harmlessly over to the wall, but it was a tense situation for a moment.
And let's look at it again. You can see it was like the Artful Dodger as far as the drivers were concerned, just avoiding the tire that was going every which way.
So a tense situation in the pits. Larry Dixon's car has stalled.
The reason for this yellow is as the result of Kevin Cogan slowing to a stop in a precarious area on the backstretch. A number of the safety crews now with Larry Dixon's machine at 2, of course, will have to be pushed out of the way.
Now let's go down to Bruce Jenner. Bruce?
Charlie, right now I'm with a very interested spectator and worker, the wife of Rick Mears, Dina Mears. And Dina, last week when you heard that the race was not going to go off because of rain, it was going to be held this Saturday, you had to be a little bit disappointed because today's your birthday.
Yes, I was. I was very disappointed.
Did you have plans back home?
Yes, we were going to take our children to the beach and ride our three-wheelers.
Yeah. I noticed that you've been working very hard. Rick's time seemed to be going up and down. He hasn't been too consistent.
I don't know what's the matter. At the first of the race, he was right up there with 188s, 187s, 189s, and now they go from 186 to 181. I don't know if he's having problems with pushing or what it is.
I was standing right next to you when just a few pits down, the fire broke out. It had to bring back some bad memories.
I'm really afraid of it. I don't think women should be in the pits. I don't know, maybe it's a reaction right now just from nerves, but it's too scary, and the fire happens too fast, and I don't think the women should even be in the pits.
I noticed that you moved your stand back.
Yeah, we're farther away from the gas tank, and that's where I want to be.
Well, I don't blame you. Well, it'd be a nice birthday present if Rick meets you in the winner circle once it's all over with.
I'd like that a lot. I hope he does win. I hope he's just laying back waiting for the finish, and then he moves in on everybody. He does that a lot.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. Nice talking to you. Let's go back to Charlie.
All right, we're still under the yellow flag.
We have several cars out of the race. Of course, on the 5th lap, Don Winnington spun, had an accident. Then Gordon Johncock got involved in an accident himself. They were talking about repairing the car. They did not. Billy Engelhart went out on the 25th lap with transmission difficulties. And then Herm Johnson suffered that pit fire 2 laps later. On lap 27, the car was burned. It could not be re-entered into this race.
And Paul, let me give you an update on the weather, and it is not that good an update. We're receiving just a slight on and off drizzle, very light right now.
Well, rain was threatened in the early forecast, but we thought we had enough time to get 500 miles complete. With the red flag, that has elongated, obviously, the time of the running by over an hour and a half, and so that forecast of rain is much closer to us. And as you said, Charlie, there's a light drizzle. They cannot run in the rain. They could go yellow and run under yellow for a few laps with a light drizzle, hoping for it to clear, but they could not race in the rain.
This is Charlie Jones and Paul Page. We're back at the Michigan 500 along with Gary Gerald and Bruce Jenner, who has been very active in the pits thus far. We're still in the yellow, Paul.
Well, this yellow, of course, has changed the pit strategy once again. They would be coming back to green probably by the end of this lap. Larry Dixon, whose car stalled down at the end of the pit area, apparently had a fuel leak. They brought that around to his pit area, and they're now working on the car and in hopes of repairing it. So as they come to the green flag now, the pace car has begun to pick up its speed and pulls out ahead of Tony Bettenhausen, who leads at the moment.
So it is Tony Bettenhausen in first, Bobby Unser second, Rick Mears third, Johnny Rutherford fourth, and Tom Sneva fifth. This will be the 80th lap complete when they come by the start-finish line right below us. And we might make this note because of the weather situation. 126 laps makes it official. 1 lap over the halfway mark. Green flag is waving as Bettenhausen, Bobby Unser, Rick Mears, Johnny Rutherford, and Tom Sneva, the top 5 in that order.
And it's Bobby Unser to keep our eyes on, because Unser should move up rather rapidly. Tony Bettenhausen, a fine young driver, but young is the key word, and the equipment is not that Bobby Unser has under him, though Tony's been doing a fine job this year, keeping in the races, driving a clean race, driving safe races, and he's still leading as they come around. In turn 2, we have a report of a problem. Yellow flag is out again. Yellow flag is out. A.J. Foyt into the wall. A.J. Foyt.
Foyt in turn 2 went into the wall, then rode down the wall. Thus far, though, there has been no fire, but A.J. is not moving. A.J. is not getting out of the car.
Fuel leaking down across the track. The fire crews are there. The car is sitting firmly against the wall. The crews are at the machine. A.J. Foyt's number 14. The yellow flag is out again. And this will slow the race further. No movement indicated from A.J. Foyt's car. crews on the scene will continue to watch. Pace car is back on the racetrack, and it will bring the fields around.
AJ still sitting in the car.
Steve Edwards, who was instrumental in that last accident, is on the scene now, looking over the car.
The jaws of life.
That's what that signal indicates. They're going to want those jaws to try and pry the car out. You saw it in our demonstration earlier. Steve Edwards, they can use it either to pry the car apart, or they can use it to cut large pieces of metal. And it looks like that car is badly damaged on the right side, so they want to use the jaws to gently pry the car apart. They'll take their time. There's no reason for them to speed up at this point. They want to take it easy and make sure that they don't injure a driver any more than the injuries he might have sustained. In the old days, when they pick him up, Charlie, and just run with him, so often they would cause more injuries in the rescue than they did in the actual work.
Dick Simon's car, he may have blown an engine from San Juan Capistrano, so he is dropped low on the racetrack. We, of course, are under the yellow with the situation with A.J. Foyt, and you may have noticed that one of the men immediately went in and put his hand behind A.J.'s head. Go back to the demonstration that we showed you earlier. When they move a race driver, they always want to protect that head and keep the head way forward.
Well, that's the concern. It is a broken neck, a broken cervical spine, and you have to assume it. It's very seldom true, but you have to assume it. There's those jaws of life from the demonstration earlier. Now watch them just snip off the locking mechanism in this car from our demonstration and bring incredible pressure to the tips of those jaws. And now they've got the door wedged open, and here come the cutters in Steve Edwards' hands. This is a demonstration videotaped earlier this week. And he will come in and just snip off the lock, which is holding the door together. There it is, and they get out. An incredible piece of machinery. It is used not only in racing, of course, it's used by fire departments and rescue services across the country with great success. It saved a lot of lives.
And that, of course, is the machinery that they're using on A.J.'s car. Dick Simon has now come into the pits.
Well, Dick has been in and out several times, and that's A.J. Watson was standing over the car. He has a rather disgusted look. I suspect it's the end of the day for him.
So now we go back to the situation in turn 2. This is A.J.'s pit crew.
They're listening to a radio, trying to get some information. That's a radio capable of monitoring the frequencies here. They're trying to find out what's going on. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, we're down here in A.J. Foyt's pit. The crew obviously very concerned. They're trying to monitor radio information. We passed car owner Jim Gilmore, who went by us on a golf cart. He said that their initial report was it was a serious crash. Now let's listen in on this conversation. Well, a difficult problem here for us to understand what those radio transmissions are saying. Crew, of course, just standing by waiting anxiously for any information that they can get. That's the situation at the moment here in the A.J. Foyt pit.
And also, they just used a backboard to slide in behind A.J. And that, of course, is what Paul was talking about. You assume the worst and you use every precaution possible, and that's to give support to the back, the neck, and to the head.
Well, there's plenty of help there. Steve Edwards in the orange safety suit up over the top of the car. With his back to us is Dr. Steve Alvey. He is the medical director of CART, and they have a philosophy that the doctor should always be the same at every race course. That way the competitors know who they're talking to, and they have a certain level of confidence in someone who constantly takes care of them. And that is who's with them now, Dr. Alvey.
This is the accident in turn 2. We're under the yellow with 83 laps complete. A.J. Foyt, who just, 2-3 weeks ago joined CART,
to run, particularly in this race. This is where he first made his impact against the fence. Was set to go last Sunday. We were postponed due to the rain delay, and AJ did not have an opportunity. He arrived late yesterday, did not have an opportunity to practice.
Well, AJ has been an absolute delight the entire time he has been here. He has spent plenty of time talking with folks, talking to the reporters that are here covering this event. I walked down to the end of the pits the other day and had a delightful conversation with him. He really has been enjoying what he's doing. He says he likes to race, and that's why he's here.
All right, we'll be back, of course, with more of the Michigan 500 in just a moment. AJ Foyt, they have now placed him into the ambulance. They had a small problem, just took a bit of time to get him out of his car that impacted against the wall in turn 2. But he is in that ambulance and will be taken immediately to the field hospital here.
Well, he'll go to that hospital for initial evaluation. They'll make a decision in the ambulance whether or not they should even stop there. If there is any reason, then they'll go right on to the hospital. Let's go back and look just a moment ago. Here is the scene at the car. A lot of people there, plenty of help as they were removing Foyt from the car, badly damaged on the right-hand side, but rather rapidly they were able to pick him up, get him out of the car, very careful when they picked him up to make sure that they didn't cause any additional injury. And they brought AJ Foyt out of the car, loaded him into the ambulance, and the ambulance now wending its way around the track, and then it'll make a decision based on the severity of injury, a situation that we know nothing about. We have no idea whether he is injured badly or not, but they are being very careful, and they will decide will they go to the track hospital or will they go on to another facility.
And of course, we also should point out that they do have a helicopter standing by in case that it is needed, or they can take him to the hospital in the ambulance. Either way.
Report to work. There's AJ Foyt's car, so you can see how hard it hit that wall, ripped the entire right side off of the car. But it looks to me like the cockpit is in pretty good shape. It's flattened. Remember, these cars, Charlie, have deformable structure. That's a very important term. The idea is that when you hit something, that the parts will absorb the energy of the impact, and the parts will come off, and accidents will look like they're terrible because parts are flying everywhere. But in that action alone, the kinetic energy of the crash is being released and hopefully not being transferred to the driver.
The car of AJ Foyt impacting on the right side into the fence in turn 2 and then going down the fence.
Yes, I got
as you can see, completely tearing out the right side. And now let's go down to Bruce Jenner. Bruce?
Right now I'm with Steve Edwards. And Steve, how's AJ doing? I noticed his car, the whole right side of it's gone.
Yeah, he hit the lamp pretty hard on the right side, Bruce. He was pinned in the race car. We were able to extricate him. He was unconscious when we got to him. He was regaining consciousness when we put him in the ambulance. It'd be premature to state his condition right now, but he was regaining consciousness. He was talking. There appears to be an injury to his right arm, and you know, that's all I can really tell you right now. But we do have him out of the race car, and he is on his way to the hospital.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, Charlie, that's what's happened right down here with AJ. He's not in too good a shape right now.
All right, Bruce, can you stay with Steve there just a minute?
Certainly.
Because he was burned earlier. How is he doing? Because he's been all over the place.
Well, I talked to him a second ago, and he seemed to be doing fine. He says that his line is right foot, but he's a busy man today.
Okay, thank you, Bruce.
So now AJ Foyt on his way to the hospital, but Charlie, they have some situations out in that turn. Its car badly damaged, and when it did that, it didn't only damage the car, it damaged the barrier. This is an Armco steel barrier all the way around, and now they're sending equipment out to look at the places where Foyt hits. This puts me, though not nearly as severe an accident as that of Danny Ongaias earlier this year at the Indianapolis 500. And while we have still a question mark about the full condition of AJ Foyt, though it sounded like Steve Edwards, who is a trained and certified paramedic, was rather optimistic. He was unconscious at the impact, but his conscious level is coming back. He is now beginning to respond to them, so that's a good sign in itself. But Danny Ongaias is recovering rather well from the reports we're receiving from his California hospital. And one interesting report, he apparently calls his race shop every day and gives them a few more instructions about what he wants to do on the race car. Last we heard, he was hoping to be back in a race car before the end of this year. We all certainly wish Danny Ongaias well and hope to see him back in a car soon.
And I also feel that he's probably watching the coverage in California right now. And we tried to talk to him, but he has a list and it's a very select list of the people that could call in and talk to him. And neither Paul Page nor Charlie Jones's name is on that list.
Well, I saw Danny in the Indianapolis hospital just 2 days after his crash out at Methodist Hospital there. And I was amazed at the time, the tremendous strength of that guy, because he had a badly broken leg, and yet he was already trying to get exercise going.
Now let's go down to Gary Jarrow. Gary?
Well, we're outside the compound, Charlie, along the infield hospital. The emergency vehicle, as you can see, has just arrived at the back door. All, of course, unauthorized people kept outside of this area, so we're just viewing in as they bring the gurney rather gingerly down from the emergency vehicle, and they'll be taking A.J. in for some preliminary observation. His crew has been anxiously standing by. A couple of them have now gone inside to be with their driver, and they were anxiously awaiting that update report from Bruce Jenner and Steve Edwards over on the far side of the track. So at this moment, we'll just stand by here and we'll wait until we can get some official word on the condition of A.J. Foyt.
This is A.J. Foyt in turn 2. This was when he had come to a stop. He hit the fence a little earlier in turn 2 and then just came sliding right down it.
Well, it looks like the car just darted up into the wall. Having not seen the start of the crash, we don't know what put it up into the wall, and then it slid for some distance. Let's go back out to the accident site and Bruce Jenner.
Right now we're at the car, and the car is completely destroyed in the back. But you notice, I'd have to say, you know, the way the car has been constructed has been fabulous. It took the shot. The whole side of the car is gone, but the cockpit, where he would be sitting, has not really been damaged at all. Just the whole side of the car has been ruined. So really, it looks like nothing from the inside of the cockpit has been hit that terribly. But boy, did he take a jolt when he hit the side of that wall. Charlie?
All right, thank you, Bruce. Of course, Bruce is way away from our normal coverage, and that's the reason that we're having a little bit of breakup on the RF mic. But just as important to get the on-the-scene report. And Bruce Jenner is there.
All right, Johnny Rutherford leads, Bobby Unser, Tom Sneva. We'll take a timeout. 100, we are still under the yellow. We do not have any additional report on A.J. Foyt. He is currently in the field hospital here. And as soon as we receive that report, Gary Jarrow will be relaying it to us.
They're still working on the fence out in the second turn. They had some damage up there. My guess, and this is simply a guess, with that kind of accident, it is one, usually as a result of a broken part. In the case of this kind of accident, the half shaft in the right rear will tend to break, and that immediately turns the car to the right because the power is now on the left rear wheel and up into the fence. It looks like that, though, again, I say we didn't see it.
The official standings now with 90 laps complete. Johnny Rutherford is in first, followed by Bobby Unser in second, Tom Sneva is in third, Rick Mears in fourth, and Mike Mosley's in fifth. Do you have an update on that?
Well, we mentioned the weather, and yes, we're getting now some reports of drizzle out behind the grandstand here, and the crews have radioed their teams. Generally speaking, they're concerned that this race may not go a full distance, and so they've told their crews, under the possibility of rain, the crews are telling their drivers, stand on it when we go green.
We are still into the yellow as we await the green. Of course, they're working on the safety fence in turn 2, of which was impacted or hit by A.J. Foyt. We have the listing is Johnny Rutherford, Bobby Unser, Tom Sneva, Rick Mears, and Mike Mosley, the top 5, and that is being sorted out, followed by Bill Alsop, Bob Lazier, Steve Krisloff, Al Unser, and Jose Legarza. That is unofficial at this point because the official scoring is still being sorted out.
Not really sure what that board meant. We're actually 91 laps deep, and they were showing it considerably deeper than that. So the crews are all trying to pass a little information, and every now and then, Charlie, they try and pass a little misinformation if it helps mess somebody up behind you.
All right, there's Johnny Rutherford. Jim Hall is the owner of his car, and the owner of an IndyCar is a story unto itself. And Jim Hall is a unique owner who has been involved in all facets of racing. Paul Page tells the story of Jim Hall.
When I go out and come in, it took us a while to develop the same language as it does with any new team or new operation, new situation. But to go out and come in and say the car is doing this, he says, aha, you know, because he's been there.
Many times when John describes something to me, I know just what he's talking about because I've felt that myself. Sometimes I have to say, well, I'm not quite sure how that relates to what I did, because I didn't drive any oval races, really. I did drive on some ovals, but I never really competed on them. So that I sometimes have to, we have to exchange several times to get across how that affects the car on the oval. But other than that, I seem to be able to relate very well to what John tells me.
Hall knows what he's talking about because he was a leading driver on the Can-Am circuit in the late 60s. Those days of road racing are fond memories for Hall.
I stopped driving after the 1970 season, and for me, I guess driving was as much fun as anything. I really did enjoy driving, and to win a hard-fought race where it was close and you think you won it on skill, there's probably nothing more exciting, at least not to me. I really did enjoy a couple of races that I had in my career. But I'll have to say that winning in Indianapolis has got to be another real high point in my racing. Even though I'm not driving now, I do enjoy the design work, the building of the cars, the team management.
In the old days, Hall tested his own designs with great success. The first Hall wing cars were so good, they banned the cars.
I think the sanctioning bodies tend to see the more sophisticated teams outperforming the lesser teams. And they say, well, if we'll change the rules to stop the major teams from doing what they're doing, then we'll equalize the racing. But that's not what happens.
You can't truly equalize.
No, you can't. And what happens is every time you make a change, the more sophisticated teams can change quicker. They react better, and they make the changes so that they move away from the field rather than back to it. And then it takes the littler teams, the little guys, 2 or 3 years to catch up, and just as they catch up, a lot of the times the sanctioning body will change the rules again, and then they're left behind again. So I think that's a bad premise.
And in all forms of racing, Jim Hall has been known for taking it to the limit. And now let's go down to Gary Gerald and see what the situation is with A.J. Foyt. Gary?
Charlie, we're standing outside the infield compound once again at the hospital. As you can see, the helicopter is warming up. Now, we do not have information that they're going to transport A.J. Foyt to a nearby hospital, but we have to draw that conclusion. We did talk just moments ago, as a very brief conversation with Jim Gilmore. He came out to tell members of the crew and the family that what was taking place. He just said, please tell everyone that A.J. is a tough old bird. He's going to be fine. He was smiling. We know he's conscious, so that's all we can report at this time as we stand by to see whether or not indeed they will be transporting A.J. Foyt from the infield medical facility.
All right, thank you, Gary, for that report. And this man has been as important. I think he's been the most important man in the history of IndyCar racing.
Well, he has certainly been a key figure in the sport. He leads in all of IndyCar type wins in history. He is the man that almost everyone consults when they want to make a move, when they need some advice, when they want to know which way to go in this sport. And I'm talking not only drivers, but promoters, sponsors, everybody. One of the first calls is always to A.J. Foyt to find out exactly what Foyt has to say about a situation. And so Foyt has been key for years. He continues to be key in the continuing conversations of the future of all of IndyCar racing.
At age 46, this is A.J.'s 25th year of driving Indy cars, and as Paul mentioned, 67 wins, 4-time winner of Indianapolis, and 7 times he has been the national IndyCar driving champion.
Now the pace car begins to head for the pit area. We anticipate a green flag momentarily, and it will be Johnny Rutherford leading Bobby Unser down to the line. As this race resumes, the green flag is out, and they are racing once again at Michigan International Speedway. Johnny Rutherford across the line, then Bobby Unser, then Tom Sneva, and Rick Mears drops into 4th.
Rutherford going into turn 2. With Bobby Unser right behind him, and again these two cars quickly separate themselves from the field. It is Rutherford and Unser, and this is a situation that we've seen throughout the afternoon. with Tom Sneva. We've seen it with Mike Mosley. We've seen it with Rutherford, and now with Bobby Unser. The two lead cars separating themselves from the pack, and there's a scramble behind them, but they continue to open the margin.
Well, originally, they said that this should be a race of pacing, but the fact that we are getting much later in the day as the result of the extensive yellow flags and the red flag, I think everybody has decided, forget pacing, let's go as fast as we can. Tom Sneva slowing down on the racetrack. He just suddenly began to drop back. Tom Sneva was running in 5th place and dropped back, so something's seriously wrong in Sneva's machine, but he begins to pick up a little bit of speed now. He's still not really up to his previous racing speed as Gary Bettenhausen pulls alongside and passes him. So Tom Sneva slowing on the race course, and that may be the end of what has been otherwise a beautiful day for him. Sneva definitely off the pace and probably going to bring the car in.
All right, so we'll keep a close eye on Tom Sneva to see if he comes into the pits, and then we'll try and pick up a quick report. As Johnny Rutherford continues to hold the lead on Bobby Unser, we have 97 laps complete of a 250-lap race.
Johnny Rutherford leading handily, though he's battling with Bobby Unser, and it's a tremendous battle. Let's go down to the pits and Gary Gerald.
Well, we can see at this moment A.J. Foyt, the veteran race driver of so many years, is being brought out now by the emergency crews to be loaded onto the helicopter here at this medical facility, obviously to be transported for further treatment at another hospital. We have no further information concerning his condition at this time. We would like to repeat that Jim Gilmore, his car owner, came out and said, AJ will be all right. He's conscious. He's a tough old bird. And at that point, that's all the information we have. We had the earlier report that it was an injury from medical director Steve Edwards on the scene to the right arm. The loading process continuing here now for the airlift evacuation of A.J. Foyt. The crash occurring over in turn number 2, as you saw, extensive damage to the Gilmore car number 14. And right now, trying to, gingerly as possible, lift the veteran driver off of the gurney on that flat board and into the helicopter, which very shortly will be leaving the Michigan International Speedway grounds. You can see it's an extensive operation. It's one of those situations that no one ever likes to see in racing. Certainly we send our best wishes along with the man who has contributed so very, very much to this great sport over so many years as he awaits further medical attention. We can see some movement there as A.J. trying to cooperate with the medical personnel who have been working so diligently over the past several minutes. That's an encouraging sign. And again, we go back to those words of Jim Gilmore, who said A.J. will be all right. So that's what we have to report at the moment. We'll stand by, and as soon as that helicopter gets in the air, we hope that we'll be able to update the information with a report from Dr. Olvey or one of the CART spokesmen that is here within the compound at this infield medical center.
All right, Gary, thank you for that report. And Paul, you and I know A.J. Foyt, and you know at this moment that he's telling everybody what to do and how to locate himself into the helicopter so they get going.
He may be a little bit feeble about his descriptions, but if he's conscious at all, he's helping out, probably helping out with some drama, too. Now, this says one thing to me, and that is that the transport will be not to one of the local hospitals in Jackson, not the Foot Hospital, but probably on to the medical center that exists at the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. Simply precautionary once again. That looks fairly encouraging. We saw 2 IV bags hanging, but again, that is a precautionary sort of thing. So let's just be careful and wait for the official report, but it does look fairly promising.
And let's also locate where we are. We are about an hour and a half drive west of the Detroit Metro Airport, and it's only 30 minutes by helicopter to Detroit and 15 minutes to Ann Arbor, which is about midway.
Continue to load A.J. Foyt. They want to make sure he's secure. That's Dr. Steve Albee there, who is supervising the final loading procedure here. They have him into the helicopter. And the yellow flag now being displayed on the race course. We'll give you an indication as to why, but I believe it's because Vern Schupan in car 33 slowed on the racetrack, necessitating the yellow, though we have another report that Bobby Unser may have just tagged the wall and then continued on, just white-walled the tire, as we used to say. Unser's car is in the pits now, and the crew is working on it. They have the car in. Here comes Johnny Rutherford coming in. As I said, the report, Charlie, was that Bobby Unser may have just tapped the wall. He is certainly in the pits for a long stop. Helicopter with A.J. Foyt now leaving.
So
all of the leaders now coming into the pits. Officially, we have 103 laps complete of a scheduled 250-lap race. And from all of us at NBC, we wish you well, AJ, and hurry back, because racing's not the same unless you're in the field.
So as the helicopter leaves the racetrack, the question is Bobby Unser's machine, because the report was that he just ever so lightly tapped the wall, but at 200 miles an hour, even the lightest brush could mean severe damage.
And while we are under the yellow with the leaders coming into the pits, that means that Steve Kriseloff is currently in the lead.
Bobby Unser's car is sitting there. They're working on the right front of the car, looking at the suspension. This is a long stop and not the kind that you can afford in a 500-mile race. And the yellow flag is out.
All right, the standings. We have Kriseloff out in front at this moment. And we'll be back with more of the Michigan 500. All right, we're back at the Michigan 500. Let's go down to Gary Gerald. Gary?
Well, we're standing here now. We have Dr. Olvey, who has just come out from the infield medical center. Dr. Olvey, what can you tell us about the condition of AJ?
Well, first of all, Gary, he was alert in the wake at the time that we sent him in the helicopter. He has a bad laceration and possible fracture of the right arm, a puncture wound and possible fracture of the left leg. He, as I said, he was conscious and alert. There are no apparent internal injuries. So if all that holds true, he should get along quite well.
Now, where is he being transported?
We're taking him to the University of Michigan Hospital in Ann Arbor.
All right, Dr. Olvey, thank you very much.
Thank you,
That's the official word at the moment on A.J. Foyt, who just left this medical infield compound here at Michigan International Speedway.
All right, thank you for that report. Now let's take a look at the official standings. Johnny Rutherford is the leader. Mike Mosley is second. Al Unser is third. Bill Alsop is running fourth. And Jose Lee Garza is running fifth.
So with Johnny Rutherford bringing the field around back to the green flag and the green flag flying once again, the question will be, will this become a sprint, Charlie? Johnny Rutherford comes down, drops below Jerry Carl and Gary Bettenhausen and sails off into the first turn. But the rest of the crews are going to have to decide, do they chase him or do they take it easy? It's getting a little darker. There's a possibility of rain. In 20 laps, they could call the race officially. They would legally be able to call it should the rain downpour.
That would be at 126 laps, which is one lap past the halfway mark. The problem of losing light is getting dark because it's overcast.
The visibility, of course, is always a great question. More often than not, the problem is sunlight in the sunset coming into their eyes, but because it is overcast, it might give them a little bit of a break here. There is Bill Alsop, currently running in fourth place and running smoothly, but he is closing in on the leaders right now as he comes up behind Mike Mosley.
Alsop, as you know, if you've been with our coverage throughout the afternoon, is carrying the onboard NBC camera that has brought us some exciting shots today. Another problem, to go back to the haze as it gets dark today, you begin to lose a depth perception. That's the first thing the drivers will notice.
And darkness is certainly contributory to that, and if you lose it, then you don't know exactly where to let off, though you can still do it by markers, but it's certainly a problem. Bill Alsop moves out and around Mike Mosley. What a fine job of driving he's doing, and I wonder if Mosley is not suffering some handling problems because Mosley moved down low on the race course and Alsop took the higher or the faster line.
So Alsop is now running in third. Garza is running in fourth as Mosley has dropped back to fifth. And as you know, the early story was Mike Mosley because he charged to the front and was running away from everybody.
It appears that Mike, at this moment at least, is nursing his car. Something else we probably ought to mention is that this ride with Bill Alsop right now is really something that he has waited for all his life. He has wanted to run in these big cars. He's wanted to run well, and he's doing it right now.
Now let's go down to Bruce Jenner. Bruce?
Well, right now they're working on Bobby Unser's car, and with me is Roger Penske. And Roger, what happened, do you know?
Well, we lost a right front wheel bearing, it looks like. And we've changed the entire right front upright.
You're going to try to restart it and get him back in.
Okay.
Luckily, you had the spare parts.
Yeah, we had the spare parts in the pits, and we lost 4 or 5 laps.
Luckily, he's back out there. At least it was fixable.
And there
having a bit of problem getting Bobby started out of the pits, but they've got him loose.
At least they were able to get him back out on the track.
Right, yeah. Now we'll go up and see how far down we are, but it's going to be a long race, so we've got to stay in. That's why we fixed it.
Let's just keep the rain away.
I hope so.
All right, Charlie.
Roger Penske feels that now with 110 laps complete that there's still a lot of racing left here this afternoon with the weather and the overcast holding off.
Well, Mike Mosley continues to fall backward through the field. He is now back in 7th position. Bob Lazier, Tony Bettenhausen, and Jose Lee Garza have all managed to get past him. Our leader is Johnny Rutherford. In 2nd place is Al Unser, who we've not seen a great deal of throughout the afternoon, but obviously he's been doing a very fine job just taking it easy. He's a very smooth driver, not that spectacular, but he certainly does win a great deal, and he's managed to slide into 2nd place, so he's about a full straightaway back.
And he's driving for Bobby Hillen's Longhorn Racing team out of Midland, Texas. And of course, Midland, Texas with Jim Hall is becoming one of the...
Johnny Rutherford's in trouble. He's spinning. It looked like something broke on his car. Rutherford, the leader, spinning on the back stretch, going into 3. I'm not sure. He shredded a tire. So Johnny Rutherford catches it, gets it under control. Charlie, he can drive it into the pits here if they can repair it. Look, the left front is up and freewheeling. He is driving only using the right side. He's keeping it going. His concern is going to be how much damage that shredded tire is doing to the chassis right now, because it's beating it hard. It's also hitting the ground and wearing away at the metal, but Rutherford's going to give a try out of it. He's headed down into the pit area. Everybody's going to have to watch because he's only going to be braking with 2 wheels when he gets there. He's coming in slow, being a little conservative. He brings it to a stop. Now the crew, Steve Roby and company, are going to have to go to work. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Johnny Rutherford up on the air jack. Steve Roby going to work as the crew chief on the backside. Roby is saying cut it off, I believe. Apparently the problem is substantial. They were prepared and were starting to change all 4 tires. You can see the flat spots on the tires after the spin. Roby, however, indicates that maybe the afternoon is over. We don't want to be premature. Now he's going back into action, trying to change. Rutherford steaming, of course, sitting in the cockpit after running up near the front all afternoon. Jim Hall out near the front of the car, supervising, trying to figure out and assess the damage. Roby now looking more dejected over on the right rear side. That, of course, was the tire that was shredded. You could see as Rutherford came in on the pits. Definitely a long, long stop. Whether JR will be able to get back in the race, we can't answer just yet. Certainly, if he does, his chances of victory have taken a tremendous pounding in this incident.
Well, these ground effects cars depend upon that fiberglass to be able to sustain themselves out on the racetrack. The tire, after it shredded, continued to hold on to the rim and was beating into that fiberglass. It looked like it destroyed a lot of it. I've said fiberglass. It's actually a graphite compound because it's much lighter than fiberglass. If they destroyed any of that right rear section of the race car itself, he would not have ground effects, therefore he couldn't race. And it looks like that's what it's done. Johnny Rutherford is unbuckled and is climbing out of the car. So it's the end of the day for Johnny Rutherford.
Now let's go back and see what happened to Johnny Rutherford and watch the great driving of JR.
Well, it looked, you can see a chunk of tire, it just looked like the tire burst, whether he ran over something or what the problem was, but certainly the right rear let go. Johnny caught it, spun it away from the fence, and is now trying to drive it to a stop before it gets into anything. He's got it pointed straight. He's running across the grass. That's an incredible driving job because there's absolutely no adhesion on that grass. And then when he gets it out on the track, the left front is not touching, the right front is not touching. He's driving it on 2 wheels.
Now let's go down to Bruce Jenner. He's with Jim Hall. Bruce?
Jim, what happened? John hit some trash on the straightaway. It cut the right rear tire and he spun it through 360 degrees. It's torn up the suspension on the right rear, and it did take an hour to fix it, so we're going to roll it away.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
I guess that's racing, huh?
How
disappointing.
So. Yeah, a little.
Luckily you got the good days.
Yeah.
Okay. Charlie?
That's not a little disappointing. That's a lot disappointing.
For Johnny Rutherford and Jim Hall, that is a giant disappointment. They take their racing very seriously.
And they certainly should. All right. We're at the Michigan 500, one of the yellow, 114 laps complete. We'll be back with more of our race coverage in just a moment. We're back under the yellow, now 115 laps complete. So we'll have at least one more lap to go. Under the yellow, let's go down to Gary Gerald.
Well, Charlie, here's Johnny Rutherford. And John, first of all, you did a magnificent job of hanging on to that race car. That's got to be one of those moments when the heart comes right up in the throat.
There's not time enough for the heart to come up in the throat. It happened so quickly that I don't honestly know which happened first, but evidently we lost a right rear and a left front, and I don't know whether the left front went after I got into the infield, into the gravel, and it punctured a hole in it, or whether it was, I think it was gone before because it was distorted and flopping, but the right rear let go, and the car did a 360 down the back stretch and went off into the infield grass, and I came back out, put it in gear, started the engine, the engine had died, and I started the engine and drove it back into the pits, and the damage was too severe to the right rear suspension and parts of the car that we couldn't continue.
It appeared as you pulled up in the pits after you drove it back in, you had every intention of getting that thing back on, back on the racetrack.
Yes, we had the race won, I reckon. The car was working finally very good, and we were out running everybody on the racetrack, had a nice comfortable lead, made our pit stop. Things were, I think, looking real good, and that's racing.
Well, I'm glad you're able to smile about it. I don't know if everybody could in this situation, but John, I know there'll be a lot of other days. We look forward to seeing you next week in Milwaukee.
Oh, we'll be there for sure. You can count on it.
All right, that's the story in the Johnny Rutherford pit. Let's go back upstairs.
We've had quite an attrition rate today. We started with 37 cars. We're down now to 21 cars as we are under the yellow. 115 laps complete. This will be 116 as we come by the start-finish line. And Paul, here the cars that have dropped out.
Well, on lap number 5, it was Bill Whittington that came out of the race. 23 laps in, Bill Tucoro had an engine failure. Herm Johnson, his fire in the pits. Salt Walther, an engine failure at 53 laps. Then Dick Simon, his turbocharger finally gave up. Kevin Cogan suffered a fire in the pit. It affected him on the straightaway, and he had to pull it in. And Johnny Rutherford, of course, we just saw him with the blown tire. Apparently he ran over something out on that backstretch. So Johnny Rutherford out of the race. And by the way, Charlie, the identical thing happened to Johnny Rutherford 3 years ago here. You will remember when he ran over the nose of Danny Angaias's car after Angaias tagged the wall. And he did the same thing. He caught it and drove it in, hoping to change the tire.
He was coming he went right through the grass, the infield, headed for the pits, and he wanted to get back out in the race. Here are the official standings. Al Unser and Bill Alsop running 1-2. They're together. Garza is running 3rd, Lazier 4th, and Mosley is running 5th. And they are also running together. So those are the battles that will be shaping up when we go back to the green flag.
Perhaps we should repeat, A.J. Foyt has an apparent compound fracture of his right arm, a puncture wound, and a possible fracture of his left leg, and should now be at the University of Michigan Medical Center. He was taken there by helicopter. So we're still under the yellow at Michigan International Speedway. The car is being brought around, and it has been Al Unser that has been able to move up to the front.
Well, this has been one of those days in racing that you hear about, but that you don't want to see again. We've had a lot of accidents. We've had a lot of yellows because of it, and we've had a reds because of the fire. And we ask Al Unser, does an accident bother him while he is racing?
The only thing I think that a driver is concerned about is making sure that if something happens to somebody, that they get out of the car okay and everything's fine. And that's, with my brother, that's the only thing I'm concerned about. If he is involved in in an accident, as long as he gets out of it, it doesn't bother me.
And Paul, all of the race drivers at any level have that ability to pull the screen down when accidents happen. The theory being that
one of the most dramatic breakthroughs in safety for cars is A.J. Foyt's car, who is totally destroyed. The whole right side is gone from the car. Is this little piece of equipment right here. It's called the Aeroquip Crashworthy Fuel Coupling. Because of this piece of equipment, it has substantially reduced the possibilities of fire. As you saw in A.J.'s car, when it did hit the wall, it did not break into flames. Where right behind me, this pit was totally destroyed when they were trying to refuel. So they've been able to substantially reduce the possibilities of fire with this little piece right here. It's interesting that the development of... And the fans just love this young driver from Mexico City.
During last week's Sports World, we aired a Sports Journal report about the controversy between USAC and CART, the two sanctioning bodies of IndyCar racing. At the end of the report, we stated that John Cooper, president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, refused to be interviewed and, quote, refused to permit, end quote, any other spokesman from USAC to appear in the story. We incorrectly attributed this statement to Mr. Cooper. The statement was made to Sports Journal by Dick King, the president of the United States Auto Club.
The green flag is out and flying at Michigan International Raceway, and Al Unser acknowledges it and picks up the speed. He is leading this race. And in coming back to the green, he really turned on the power and left Bill Alsop in second place, sitting some distance back, almost a half of a straightaway now, as there comes Bill Alsop off the corner. Also in the battle coming up toward the front is Jose Garza and Bob Lazier. So a battle for first, a battle for second. There is Garza leading Lazier into turn 3. Battles in 2 positions on the racetrack.
Al Unser, 42 years of age. Bill is first. Bill Alsop is second. He's 43. And then we have the youngster, Garza, at 22. And then Bob Lazier at age 42. We mentioned earlier, this is a sport for the old folks.
Well, Bob Lazier comes out of road racing. In fact, I raced against him in the Formula Ford several times. He's a very smooth driver because he learned in that category of running in the Formula Fords, which is a machine without a great deal of power. You see Bob Lazier sitting right behind Jose Garza, who learned his driving in the go-karts. In fact, won his first race in Mexico in go-karts. Another area that really teaches you very young how to go fast. There's 2 very fast men.
Lazier, a former Super V champion, listed as a rookie in Champ Cars, though. This is his first full year out.
It is his first full year, and he has really pleased crowds. So the first time we saw him back at Phoenix when NBC covered that race, it was in the second lap that unfortunately he got tangled with another car and pushed up into the wall. And when we saw him climb out of the car, he was such a disappointed young man. Now Bob Lazier is making his bid as they come upon slower traffic, but Garza is picking the high line, and Lazier has decided that that is the place for him to be. He's going to stay back behind Jose Garza, at least until they come off the corner. But it's quite a battle for third place that we're seeing here.
So a pair of rookies running in third and fourth, but 20 years of age separating them.
Garza now picking up on the high side, and Lazier continuing to follow, though it appears that Lazier is just casually staying behind him. Let me assure you that is not the case. Lazier is trying every trick in the book that he knows. As he closes up, pulls power on the straightaway, drafts behind Garza, and pulls out alongside. Now can he hold the line low on the track? Apparently he cannot. Garza picks up the high side, and Lazier is forced to duck in behind him once again. These cars are capable of drafting. You saw it there. Though the one thing they really have to do is to keep the aerodynamics working on the chassis. They have to keep one half of the car out in clean air, so they don't draft directly behind, just half behind, because they still need the downforce that's created by the ground effects.
Jose Garza of Mexico, and earlier we asked him how does he feel about running with the veterans.
It's quite exciting, and it puts a lot of pressure on you, because it's not easy to run wheel to wheel with one of those guys, knowing that you know, they've got so much more experience that they can get you anywhere they want.
Boy, doesn't he have a great smile? One of the handsome young men in auto racing. First time we saw him was at Phoenix this year when he captured the crowd there, and went on, of course, to capture it, as everyone knows, at Indianapolis, where he was named the Rookie of the Year.
Well, watch Bob Lazier as he uses that drafting technique once again. He's trying to build up revs and hopefully can just get his nose ahead of Garza as he comes into the turn. The distance is about 25 feet, but Garza is able to maintain his position a little higher on the racetrack, though Lazier closes up very slowly. While it is a race at speeds of around 200 miles an hour, it is really measured in inches. Can I get 3 or 4 inches, 1 foot maybe, on the fellow in front of me? There Lazier makes his try once again. Bob Lazier pulling alongside on the inside of Garza. You see it from an aerial shot. Bob Lazier has managed to push by Garza and picks up third place.
So it is now Al Unser, Bill Alsop, Bob Lazier in third, and Garza is running fourth. Rick Mears is still in fifth, followed by Mike Mosley, Pancho Carter, Tony Bettenhausen, Steve Krisaloff, and Bobby Unser.
So Bob Lazier uses drafting to his advantage and gets past Jose Garza and is sitting in third place. It's an exciting battle that we're watching for third place. Al Unser is our leader. Bill Alsop sits in second place.
And a look at Bob Lazier, currently running in third place. Looking for his first win in IndyCars. as is Garza.
The IndyCar is a highly complex machine. Its construction is complex. If you've never seen a race car in pieces, what you're about to see will be interesting. If you're a race fan, I think you'll find this very fascinating. View of that car. Bobby Helen's Longhorn racer, currently in the lead, driven by Al Unser. And those artistic photographs, by the way, were taken over months of construction by photographer Chet Jezierski.
Officially now 131 laps complete, so the race is official. We had to go 126 in case they had to call it because of the weather or because of the loss of life.
There is Pancho Carter, who has moved up into 5th place. Now, you remember, he's had quite a course to get there. He started out toward the front, and then he got involved in some oil along with Larry Dixon. He spun the car out in the first turn all the way down onto the grass and was able to keep the engine running, keep it started, and now has moved up, and he is right behind Jose Legarza, who is sitting in 4th place. And Carter, despite the spin, is really moving up, hoping to challenge for the lead.
So the top 5, Al Unser, Bill Alsop, Bob Lazier, Garza, and then Pancho Carter, as Carter sets sail for position number 4. Garza will try and hold him off, as we'll be checking out that battle. Now, an interesting thing on Garza, he has changed his racing setup since we saw him earlier this year in Phoenix. In other words, he was involved in a partnership, and now they figured they would go ahead and run their own operation.
Apparently, he made the decision that trying to field 2 cars was very difficult. He had Jeff Brabham, the son of the world driving champion, driving as a teammate with him, but I think Garza finally decided it really takes too much energy to try and keep 2 cars going, especially in your rookie year, so he's concentrating on his own ride. Here is Pancho Carter, now beginning to challenge Jose Legarza for 4th place. Garza is out in front, the rookie. Carter, the long-time veteran, and he has really shown the worth of years of driving experience on this track today. Now he's going to try. Garza on the low side coming into the turn. Garza running smoothly around the corner, and Pancho right up behind him. Ducks in behind him, hoping to pick up the draft.
Pancho Carter at age 30, but this is his 8th year of driving championship cars. He is a former midget and sprint car champion. He has the experience over Garza, comes in underneath him, and he takes it. Pancho Carter moves into 4th place. Now Garza has been passed twice. He's dropped now from 3rd to 5th. Is he beginning to slow down?
Well, you have to ask that question. We'll try and get a clock on him up here and find out if he is running at his normal speed. It appears that he has, and he's just being outdriven, in this case by Pancho Carter, who I can't say enough about the drive that he's done today, moving from the front to the back and then back up to the front once again. So there is Garza. The question is, maybe it is mishandling now, and he is being forced to slow down just a little bit. The clock is on. Jose Legarza, car number 55.
Garza from Mexico City. We have officially 135 laps complete of a scheduled 250-lap 500-mile race here at the Michigan International Speedway.
And at this point in the race, there are 9 cars running on the leader lap, running with the leader, Al Unser. Here is Garza. This clock time will be slightly affected now because he has the slower car of Phil Kaliva in front of him. Kaliva moves up and gives him racing room. Garza comes around, 37, 38 seconds, 39.2 seconds. The one-lap speed for Jose Le Garza. He's averaging just over 183.6 miles an hour. That's a pretty good racing speed, though it's well down off of the speed that he was qualifying at.
Jose Le Garza of Mexico City, currently in 5th place. The leader is Al Unser, and we've got a problem. Car number 64, that is Steve Chassis. And now let's go down to Bruce.
Here's a man with me today, right now, Dick Simon, who has had his problems. Tell us about it. Right from the beginning of the day, your pit got burned up and you lost everything.
Yes, we did, Bruce. Actually, we were very fortunate nobody got hurt in the pits. The pit in front of us, Herm Johnson's, caught on fire and the wind was blowing our direction, burned everything up completely. Thanks to a lot of teams, we were able to get back into the race. They loaned us some parts, spare tires, etc. Unfortunately, when we got back in, the engine blew up a few laps later. After the turbocharger broke, we came in, changed that, and went back out in the engine. It just wasn't our day in one side, but on the other, the fellow team members were very gracious to us, and I'd have to thank them, and I'm just glad we were here.
What about the visibility out there? It started getting a little bit darker right now. You just came in a minute ago. Was it getting a little bit tougher for the drivers?
Well, Bruce, I think that the visibility, it really doesn't matter that much because it's clear enough and bright enough that you can see, and as it gets a little darker, it seems like the track turns a little blacker as far as through the helmet. I don't think that's a problem at all. I think actually the track is good and the race is a good one. I think the people are seeing a good race.
They certainly are. Sorry you're out of it. It's always next week.
Well, I wish we were in it too. Our sponsor, Vermont American, has a lot of people here.
All right. Charlie?
There's Steve Chassis' machine. He pulled it off the race course and right up to the gate, apparently out. Steve from Indianapolis, Indiana. This is the identical machine to Mike Mosley's car. He's been helping with the research. It's a stock block-powered Dan Gurney 1981 Eagle.
Running second is Bill Alsop, and running third is Bob Lazier, who you see here. And the separation as Lazier tries to close on Alsop. The leader is Al Unser in car number 8, driving the Longhorn Racing. And the standings through 138 laps, Al Unser, followed by Alsop, Lazier, Carta, and Garza.
Now Bob Lazier heads into the pits.
And we'll be back with more of our coverage in just a moment. All right, we're back. Al Unser coming out of the pits. He was in just over 12 seconds. Garza had a problem in turn 1. He was kicking out some smoke, and he has come into the pit.
Well, it looks like Garza's turbocharger just suddenly let go on the racetrack, and he pulled it down quickly. Might have, depending on what broke there, might have had a little oil spray on the track also. There you see it suddenly let go and let that blue plume of smoke, which indicates oil is coming out of there and burning somewhere. And Garza put his hand in the air, indicated he was slowing. Kept it up fairly high out of the racing groove, but he has to cross it here. So the question is, did he put anything down on the racetrack? At the same time, Mike Mosley had his problems. He apparently ran out of fuel on the course and had to come in very slow and be pushed to a stop.
All right, let's go down to Bruce Jenner. Bruce?
Right now I'm with Jose Le Garza and a tough break. What happened to your motor?
Well, the engine just quit on me. It's quite a disappointment, but such is racing.
I noticed the last few laps before the engine did go, you were falling a little bit more off the pace. Could you feel the motor going?
Yeah, it started actually going away before the last yellow lap. I could feel it. I could feel it was, starting to act up. And it was just a matter of time, and, I was sure it wasn't going to go the distance.
Tough break.
Yeah, that's racing.
Certainly is. All right, let's go back up to Charlie.
Harry McDonald is getting a tough break, too. His car number 45 has had its engine let go. He's a local driver here, but because that engine is gone, they've now put the yellow flag out. They want to take a good look at the race course, make sure there's not too much oil or too many pieces.
144 laps complete.
Well, Charlie McDonald stays out. He stays out on the racetrack. He's gone over the line once. I wonder if he even knows the yellow is for him. As long as he stays out there, he has the possibility of putting oil on the racetrack and making it very dangerous. Pancho Carter in for the stop. He is in the lead at the moment. He stayed out on the yellow, picked up the lead, so Pancho Carter, a stop by the leader.
And so we have a situation when a driver simply does not realize that he's the one causing the problem.
Well, normally on the straightaway, you take a look at your instruments and take a look at your rear view mirrors, and when you look at the rear view mirrors, you ought to see that smoke behind you. Now, he apparently knows it now. Let's see if he's going to come in. He's coming through the fourth turn and drop down very low. Yes, McDonald is going to bring it in now, but he has one lap out there.
145 laps complete. Make that 146. We'll be back with more of our race coverage after these messages from your local station. Rick Mears currently running in 6th as we're back under the green, Paul.
And Pancho Carter is leading. We are back under green. That is Al Unser that is sitting back one car behind Pancho Carter. Al is in second place, so he has begun his chase for Pancho Carter. And I'm not sure, did we see a slight show of smoke at the right rear of Pancho's car there? Al Unser trying to make his closure now. Al in second place. He has his sights set on our leader, Pancho Carter.
So the official standings now: Pancho Carter in first, Al Unser running second, Tony Bittenhausen is running third, Bill Alsop is fourth, Bob Lazier is fifth, Rick Mears is sixth, Steve Krisloff is seventh, and Tom Bigelow is eighth. Gary Bittenhausen is running ninth. We have 17 cars remaining. We started with 37 on the grid today.
In the case of both Pancho Carter and Rick Mears, we're talking about some very smooth racing drivers. They've been doing a fine job. Here is a battle for third place. Tony Bettenhausen in car number 16 is in third, and Bill Alsop is sitting right behind him trying to pick up third.
152 laps complete, so we have 98 laps to go in the Michigan 500.
Tony Bettenhausen moves below the slower car of Phil Kaliva. Bill Alsop does the same as he is chasing Alsop. This is a battle for third, and Bettenhausen has some slower traffic to continue to contend with. Alsop is sitting right behind him. It seems that Bill is just biding his time, waiting until they string out of this traffic, and then he will go up and begin his challenge.
We would like to point out that the camera on Bill Alsop's car that we had the early coverage is no longer working, so we do not have that shot live for you as we had earlier. In case that you might be just looking for it, Pancho Carter, Al Unser running 1-2, Bittenhausen also running 3-4.
Now Tony Bettenhausen continues to pass slower traffic on his way in third place. This young man has worked very hard with his equipment this year. He goes around Larry Dixon. It is a dream. He comes out of a racing family. His father was a race driver. Two of his brothers, Merle and Gary, are race drivers. He's a fine young man.
Now let's go down to Gary.
Standing down here, we've just checked in at the Infield Medical Center trying to get updated information on A.J. Foyt. We understand from the chief doctor here that the helicopter arrived safely in Ann Arbor. A.J. is now en route in ground transportation from the helicopter landing site to University Hospital, the University of Michigan Hospital in Ann Arbor. We understand that the problem, he was resting comfortably, experiencing pain as could well be expected with the right arm. We are told that he was kibitzing with the nurses, however, which is certainly an encouraging sign. They're awaiting him now at University Hospital in Ann Arbor. So continued encouraging reports on A.J. Foyt.
Thank you, Gary. That is encouraging. We now have 155 laps complete, 95 laps to go. Pancho Carter is the leader, followed by Al Unser, Tony Bittenhausen, Bill Alsop, and Bob Lazier. We'll be back with more of our coverage in a moment. Along with Paul Page, Gary Gerald, Bruce Jenner, this is Charlie Jones, Michigan 500. Pancho Carter is the leader. We want to alert you across the country that in about 5 or 6 minutes, those of you in the east and the central time zones, some of the stations will be cutting away for NBC's nightly news. After the nightly news, they will, of course, then come back to us for the conclusion of this race, but many of the stations in the west, you just stay with us, and we will continue with our coverage throughout the afternoon and the early part of the evening here in the east.
There is Pancho Carter, the leader. He is maintaining about a 2.5-second lead over Al Unser in second place. And occasionally in the aerial shots we did just a moment ago, you can get an idea of what race driving is all about as he pitches the back end around and lets the back end slide a little bit. Pancho Carter leading Al Unser. Al in the blue and white number 8 as Pancho Carter takes her through the second turn and down the back straightaway. Still about 2.5 seconds between Pancho and second place Al Unser.
And what an afternoon this would be for Pancho Carter. This young man is going for his first IndyCar win. He is currently in the lead at age 30, the former midget and sprint car champion, and he started driving championship cars, or Indy cars as they are better known, when he was only 22 years of age.
Well, Pancho Carter comes from Brownsburg, Indiana, a western suburb of Indianapolis and grew up in the shadow of the Speedway. Another man that comes from a racing family. The relatives, Johnny Parsons is related to him, Dwayne Carter, the whole group grew up in the shadow of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They wanted to race. He's come up through racing his whole life. He had a very bad crash on the 2nd of December in 1977 that almost stopped his racing career, but he worked hard to come back.
The battle for 4th place between car number 7, that is Bill Alsop, and car number 35, Bob Lazier. Alsop is in his 3rd year of racing championship cars, and Lazier in car number 35, although 42 years of age and a former Super V champion, is listed as a rookie, his first full year out on this particular circuit.
Here comes Alsop, and Lazier right behind him, using the benefit of the draft and also a bit of the benefit of Tony Bettenhausen being in front of him as he comes low and is looking to get by Bill Alsop. Now, if he can get that job done, then he sets sail for 3rd place, car number 16, Tony Bettenhausen. He doesn't have the job done yet. Here they come, side by side down the back straightaway. That's Tony Bettenhausen out in front. So this is a 3-car battle for 3rd place, and Lazier is the man that's trying to get past Alsop, and then hopefully in the same swoop, it'd be nice if he could come up and take on Tony Bettenhausen at the same time. But both Bill Alsop and Tony Bettenhausen will have something to say about that.
The ideal position seems to be underneath for the key passing that we've seen throughout the afternoon.
Well, it's certainly where his car is working at the moment. He's sitting down behind Alsop. He gets past Alsop, moves into 4th place, and is now chasing Bettenhausen.
Many of the stations, by the way, will be going away for the NBC Nightly News. Those of you in the West will stay with us for the conclusion. We'll be back in a half hour over most of these stations as we continue our coverage of the Michigan 500.
The second back. For a moment, he was right up on the back end of Pancho's car, and I think Pancho saw him and decided that was too close for comfort and nailed the throttle and the boost hard and has put this interval of 0.3 of a second between them. As they come across the line, still 33/100 of a second separates 1st and 2nd.
So it is Pancho Carter leading the way through turn 1. He heads for turn 2. Tony Bettenhausen, car number 16, is running 2nd, and that is the battle at the Michigan 500 as we are coming to the closing laps. We have 241 laps complete. Pancho Carter, the leader. Tony Bettenhausen is running 2nd. Rick Mears is 3rd, followed by Bill Alsop, then Tom Bigelow, Gary Bettenhausen, Scott Brayton, Bill Kaliva, Roger Rager, and Larry Dixon. But the story involves the 2 young drivers, 30-year-old Pancho Carter and 29-year-old Tony Bettenhausen.
Well, this is the battle on the racetrack. Pancho Carter and Tony Bettenhausen, the battle for the lead. Let's go to the pits. Here's Gary Gerald.
Oh, this is Paul Diatlovich, the crew chief for young Tony Bettenhausen. Paul, you're so excited here. You got a real rooting section going to this pit.
I'll tell you, we're all out here. We're enjoying the race. Most of my help that we have is free help, so they get a pretty good charge out of it. We're a new team. This is our first year out. We have a 7-year-old car, and we're pretty excited.
5 hours ago, did you have any idea in your mind that you might be battling for the lead in this race?
I didn't know about battling for the lead. I knew we'd be battling for a top 5 spot.
How about strategy now in these last few laps?
Well, we made our strategy the last pit stop. We pitted under the yellow. It looked like we may have to pit 2 more times. As it looks, we only had to make the 1 pit stop, and we're going to go to the end on this.
All right, Paul Diatlovich, the crew chief for Tony Bettenhausen, who continues to stalk Pancho Carter in the sprint toward the checkered flag.
And we're closing in on a total of 500 miles, and look at the distance between the car leading Pancho Carter's and Tony Bettenhausen, who is running 2nd. It is about a 1/3 of a second in time.
0.3 of a second this far in the race. As you said, coming to 500 miles. In Indy cars, that is quite amazing for them to be running this close after this long.
Pancho Carter and Tony Bettenhausen, 244 laps complete. We're coming up to completion of the lap number 245. We'll have 5 to go.
This is a point in the race. I know we've said it before, but it certainly bears saying again. If you're in the lead and you're running smoothly, you start listening to see what might be going wrong, and all of the things that have happened to you in your past, all of the things that have gone wrong begin to come to mind once again, and you wonder, will this part make it? Will that part make it? Or maybe you even know something. You've
heard a little noise in the car, or you've watched one of the gauges flicker, and you wonder what's going to happen. Pancho Carter's wife, as she watches in this race, his wife Carla, they have one son who has been here at the track. In fact, he wears his father's helmet as they both went around together on a bicycle in the pits. Quite a devoted and an excellent father.
Now working their way through lap traffic with 4 laps to go. Again, for Tony Bentonhausen or for Pancho Carter, the victory today would be their first in championship car racing.
2 Penske cars sitting in 3rd and 4th. Rick Mears in 3rd, Bill Alsop in 4th, Tom Bigelow in 5th, and Tony Bentonhausen's brother Gary is in 6th place.
Although Pancho Carter seems to be able to hold the margin over Tony Bentonhausen, many of the drivers will tell you at this point in the race, they would just as soon be in second as to be in the lead, because then they can set up the leader to try and make that final pass. They could make it out of turn 2. They might want to wait and challenge out of turn 4, take him on the inside, and race him for the checkered flag.
Of course, the other side of the argument may be simply, can they keep up with one another? Is Tony Bentonhausen running flat out at this moment? I suspect that he is, and his job is to just try and inch his way up, but at the same time, be careful while he does it. There's Carla. And she looks down, looks around. Boy, she is pulling for Pancho. Look at the tension.
They come roaring past the start-finish line with 2 laps to go. Pancho Carter and Tony Bentonhausen.
Still running smoothly. Still a battle right at the close has not yet developed. These are the kart races that Pancho Carter has done well at in 1981. And now he is trying to pick up a victory. Running ever so smoothly. Now the white flag should be displayed to Pancho Carter as he comes to the line, and there it is, 2 miles, 1 more lap to go for Pancho Carter. If he can make it to the backstretch, he could almost coast to the finish, were it not for Tony Bentonhausen sitting right behind him. So Pancho Carter still has to watch those rear-view mirrors as Bentonhausen will try and close up. But it seems a fruitless task now as Pancho Carter screams down the backstretch and into the number 3 turn. The checkered flag will be waiting for him as he comes off of this lap. Pancho Carter, the last turn, the last lap, less than half a mile now as he screams toward the checkered flag, and twin checkers are displayed to Pancho Carter, and now to Tony Bentonhausen as he comes by. Look at Carla, look, she's crying, she's so happy with this victory. Pancho Carter has come home the winner of the inaugural Michigan 500 for IndyCars.
It has been a long wait for Pancho Carter in his 8th year of driving championship cars, looking for that first win, and he picks it up in the Michigan 500. And an endurance test for car and for driver here today.
And what a tremendous comeback for him. Pancho Carter, who in 1977 was in an extraordinarily serious crash at Phoenix International Raceway during a practice test. And now he is here, the victor today. He was badly injured, worked hard to come back. Let's go down to Bruce Jenner.
Right now I'm with a very happy lady. Carla, congratulations. I noticed even after the win and all the cheers and everything, you still put down his last lap time, working right to the finish.
Our crew chief would kill me if I didn't get every lap. I can't even believe it. I'm so happy. We've waited so long for this.
You certainly have, and you deserve it.
Thank you very much.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, what a happy lady.
And deservedly so, as Pancho Carter now can slow down, relax, and recognize that he has won the first 500-mile race for IndyCars at Michigan International Speedway. Pancho Carter in number 5. Slowly down the backstretch that for so many laps he cruised down at better than 190 miles an hour. Here's the unofficial order of finish. Pancho Carter wins. Tony Bentonhausen in second. Rick Mears in third. An excellent one for Tony. Bill Alsop, a fine finish 2 and 4th. And Tom Bigelow comes in 5th. Unofficial results. The 6th position, Tony's brother Gary. Scott Brayton comes home in 7th. Bill Kaliva stayed in the race all day long and manages to pick up 8th. Larry Dixon, after hitting the wall overall stays out with hasty repairs to his car in 9th and Bob Lazier in 10th.
And those 10 cars were the only 10 cars remaining on the track at the end of the race. And by the way, Bob Lazier has been voted as the Rookie of the Michigan 500. And pulling into victory circle now it is here is Pancho Carter in car number 5.
He receives a standing ovation as he pulls in. A popular victory here today. Congratulations to Pancho.
Jerry Gerald is there beside the car to get a quick word with him.
Winning the race in car number 5. Put the trophy right here. Don't go away, Dubin, because we're going to move it again.
Go ahead, Gary.
Pancho, I know you're unbuckling. I know this is one of those magic moments. 7 years ago at this racetrack, you were second. 5 times you've been second in your career. Now you've won one. You hear the ovation of the crowd. Your feelings. Boy, it's just wonderful. I've been trying for a long time to do this, and it just really feels great. We got behind there with a spin, and I'm just amazed that we got going. The car worked beautiful. A lot of credit to the Alex Foods crew and the chief mechanic, John Caples, and the car owner, Alex Morales, and all the guys on the crew. They just did a great job. It was really easy to drive. It was like I said before the race, if the car had handle, you could go 500 miles here, and it wouldn't be too bad. I'm tired after running, but not that tired. After that spin, did you think realistically you had any chance of winning this race? No, not really. Kind of jokingly, I told John, I said, don't worry, John. I said, we'll get the lap back.